Swing and a shot. Hammered toward left. A line drive. Ball off the base of the wall. Herrera headed to second. A double. It's 2-0. High fly well hit toward left center. Soto on the run. He's going to tie it. It's gone. A home run for Arias. Everybody up at Bush. Little Tapper. Burleson to O'Brien, and the Cardinals win it. 3-0 is your final.
Chip Carey on the call after a 3-0 shutout victory for the Cardinals last night. Just like I predicted, T-Bone. I said Pallante is going to throw 6 shutout innings for the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are going to win. No questions asked.
Yeah, you called
No, I didn't. I was pretty negative.
I called an 8-6 win, so at least I had half of it right, like they won.
And BK called a loss, too, which, by the way, no BK today. Little guy is sick at home, so he is home with him. So you get Ferrario and T-Bone, or T-Bone and Friends. No, it's really Ferrario and Friends here.
T-Bone and Friends.
It was just a fun way to get you kind of excited for this one. We're excited, though, because the Cardinals have moved above 500. After winning their first 2, they lose the next 2, and then they get this one last night, beating Kodai Senga, but Andre Pallante really the biggest topic in that game, in my opinion, T-Bone, because Pallante provided the Cardinals 5 innings of work, gave up 3 hits, 3 walks, had 3 strikeouts, got into a little bit of a trouble in that 6th inning, which is why he did not record an out. They pulled him out. Graceffo and Mason Winn helped them get through that inning cleanly, and the Cardinals would just continue on to win it 3-0. And for Andre Pallante, T-Bone, that was more than I was expecting. He had 10 whiffs in that start against righties, which he typically struggles with. 0 for 9 with 2 walks and 2 strikeouts. And look, this isn't a daunting Mets team. We could talk about that in a moment. But more so for Andre Pallante, who I think I had the biggest question mark surrounding, right up there with Kyle Leahy. And I know he was fine last season, but it didn't give me the warm and fuzzies that he was going to be a guy that could be relied upon this season. Man, that was a great start. That's exactly what a number 5 pitcher in your rotation can provide you. Some games he's going to be great. Some games he might get hit around, but he was stable for the Cardinals and got them to the point where they could win that game.
Yeah, I thought he was great last night. You know, I didn't really see much of the kick change.
Yeah, where was that? You know, it was hyped, man.
I think he threw it, like on Baseball Savant, they registered him as having a splitter, so I'm just guessing. I think that might have been it, but he only threw that pitch like 5 or 6 times, which I think is basically what it's going to end up being if he sticks with it. Yeah, he threw the splitter a total of 6 times, and it came against lefties.
So it was a subtle
I think that's it, because when he talked about adding a kick change, and along with basically everybody that threw right-handed on the Cardinals last year, talked about it at winter warm-up, it was basically to get lefties out, because the Cardinals' rotation as a whole was one of the worst in baseball, getting left-handers out last year. So I think he mixed it in a little bit there. But overall, I thought just mixing his stuff looked very good, you know. And Andre Pallante is a guy that, when he is right, is going to keep the ball on the ground, which he did last night. He's going to get lefties out, which he did for the most part last night. But the thing that is going to be what can kind of define really success for him to the next level compared to what it was 2 years ago for him is if he's able to get righties out.
Yeah.
And the fact that you mentioned those numbers where he held them for 0 for 9 with 2 walks and 2 strikeouts yesterday was very impressive. I thought he looked very good. It looked like Andre Pallante of old. Now, I don't know if that's going to sustain. He kind of falls into the category of basically half the team, which is, okay, this is great, but what do you look like in a month?
Yeah.
But it was encouraging signs from Andre Pallante for a guy that's probably pitching for his job here. He's the one that's under the most pressure in, I would say, the first 30 days of the season. And the reason I bring that up is I don't think it was a coincidence yesterday that the Cardinals decided with Hunter Dobbins, who's on the IL, on the 15-day IL with the recovering from the knee injury, they decided to send him on a rehab assignment rather than just straight out optioning him. And what that means is they don't have to burn an option yet on him. They got 30 days to where he gets to pitch in the minors and he doesn't technically burn an option year. And then in 30 days, they can decide, okay, do we want to call him up and put him in the rotation? Or will we then do the process of activating him and optioning him down, which burns through an option year? I don't think that was by accident because he's clearly built up. He threw 70 pitches yesterday at AAA Memphis. Part of the reason for that is I think in 30 days they want to decide, okay, between Hunter Dobbins, Richard Fitz, and Andre Pallante.
Yeah.
But Pallante gets off to such a good start, he's already in the driver's seat in my mind for a guy that's really the only one that's probably pitching for his job throughout the baseball season.
Yeah, I think Pallante's in a trial period. And I think there's a handful of guys on this roster that are in a trial period. Nathan Church, Jordan Walker. You could go with Thomas and JC if you want to view it that way. Maybe Ivan Herrera at the catcher position. There's a lot of guys that are in the trial period. period. And Andre Pallante is probably the poster child of that one in the first 30 days, 60 days of the season. And it's a great pickup by you on the Hunter Dobbins conversation. You know, you mentioned it, though, off the top, T-Bone, of, you know, what's this going to look like as the season rolls on? And that really does fall into the line of thinking for Andre Pallante, at least for me, and why I was so out on him yesterday when we were talking about it. In the first month of the season last year, in 16 starts, all the way up till July 1st, he had a 4.4 ERA. He was able to give them averaging about 5.5 innings per start, and he was fine. It was competitive enough. And then the rest of the way from July until the end of the season, he could barely get through 4 innings, and he was giving up about 6.6 earned runs per game. Like, that's a very different starting pitcher that the Cardinals possessed. So, yeah, I think Andre Pallante is a picture of what the Cardinals are doing this season. It's putting guys into positions and see what you look like. And for Pallante, that was a successful outing for him against a Mets lineup that, look, I'm not going to, shoot down every opponent that the Cardinals play this season.
If they lose 2 or 3 to the Cardinals, we can determine they suck.
We did it to the Rays, where it's like, man, you got Ryan Valade playing the outfield and hitting 2.
That one I feel confident in saying that's not a good baseball team.
I don't know if you felt this way, T-Bone. We were talking about it in the office, and I don't know if our listeners felt this way. The Mets are not a scary opponent. Like, I thought they would be. Like, you still have Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. That's 2 of the best options you can have right now in the National League, with the exception of the LA Dodgers. But, Bo Bichette looks out of place, looks out of sorts. Maybe that's just what happens in that first trial run when you sign a big contract as a free agent. Surprise, Luis Robert is not what we thought Luis Robert was from the first couple of years as the Chicago White Sox. They just don't have much beyond that top 2, and their pitching is fine. Mets are not a daunting opponent that I thought they would be.
Yeah, I think they're like the story of the National League, where there's the Dodgers and then there's everybody else. Because I agree to an extent on that, but once you get past the first, I would say 3 in that order, especially when Polanco wasn't in the lineup last night because apparently he's dealing with a Achilles issue.
Yeah.
It truly is a drop-off of a whole bunch of, okay, they're kind of like the Cardinals. It's kind of a prove-it year for a lot of those guys. Like Luis Robert was hitting cleanup for them yesterday. Guys, Robert was 13% below league average last year. By the way, 2 years ago, he was 14% below league average. So it's not like he's a guy that's been performing well. It's been 2 seasons since we saw him as an all-star in 2023. I'm with you. The Mets lineup's not all that impressive, but Pallante's still able to get through the big 3 dogs that were at the top of that lineup, and they didn't end up hurting him. On top of the bullpen, being able to kind of have a redemption series so far against the New York Mets, that's a good quality win to shut down that opponent. And like Chip said, I think first shutout in a decade for the Cardinals in the month of March.
Yeah, very impressive. So now we have our first turn through the rotation. Later today, at least the Cardinals believe they're going to play this game. Somebody just texted in a picture that said the tarp is on the field, so that's what a way to start
shocking.
off. But Matthew Liberatore is slated to start today for the Mets, which means you have gone through this rotation 1 full turn. Liberatore, 5 innings, 1 earned run, 2 strikeouts. McGreevy, 6 innings, no earned runs, 5 strikeouts. May, 4 innings, 10 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 strikeouts. Leahy, 5 innings, 4 earned runs, 1 strikeout. And then Pallante, as we just discussed. Initial reaction, T-Bone, to the first look at the starting 5 for the Cardinals.
It's fine.
All right. Cardinals, 2026.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Liberatore's one that I'm excited to see if he gets to pitch today, what he looks like in his second start, because he's one of those guys, and Eno had a great piece today on The Athletic about, 4 things that you can look at early on in a season to determine what is real and what isn't, because like a lot of people look at through 5 games, this guy's hitting 300. Is this sustainable? We'll talk about it as a show. But one that he brought up was Stuff Plus. And Liberatore, when we talked with Eno towards the end of spring training, was pretty high on Matthew Liberatore and what his stuff looked like. I didn't really see it in his first start, and that's why I'm excited to see what he looks like in his second start today if he gets to make it against the New York Mets. But I think the rotation's kind of what I expected. The only one that was really shocking was May, but honestly, he looked like May of last year, but he threw harder, which is he didn't locate it. Stuff looks pretty good, and then you look up and he gives up 6 runs, So I think it was a lot of what I was expecting. A lot of these guys are going to be fine. There's not a big ceiling to the rotation. There's also not like a catering floor. It's all just kind of mediocre is what I would call the rotation, with guys that you can look at and say, boy, we really hope that this clicks with them. Like Liberatore, for example. The stuff seems to be amped up a little bit. Is that going to lead to more success? Dustin May added more weight on. Is it going to lead to more success because he's got his velo back? You know, those are the storylines to still watch for in the rotation. But it's kind of what we all have been saying all season long, which is it's fine. There's nothing super sexy about it. They're going to do their job. They're going to go out there and they're going to see if they can pitch their way into the core moving forward.
Yeah, not a lot of strikeouts. That's my initial reaction. On top of what you said, it's fine. Like, you've got guys. I'll tell you this. You're going to have guys that are going to battle through giving you innings. Like, innings are not going to be a problem this year for the Cardinals, because watching McGreevy, watching Liberatore, watching Pallante, although Pallante's pitch count got pretty high early on, like, these guys are going to give you at minimum 5 when they go out there for you. But there's just not a lot of strikeout stuff. Like, you got whiffs from Andre Pallante. I believe Liberatore had some as well. You mentioned May, who threw the stuff hard. McGreevy had the most strikeouts of all of them. But when you think of a rotation, when you think of a pitcher, you talk about this all the time, T-Bone. Where's the scary stuff? Where's the stuff that makes you swing and miss? Because that's what counts in the playoffs. I don't think most of these guys are slated to have it. You hope that more of those guys have that in the minor league system as you continue to grow.
Yeah, and that's no surprise. The one that I would hope that would have a little bit more as we go is Libby and May.
Yeah, May's the one I was hoping for.
And, like, the May one, like, it'll become a conversation when we get there. If he does get there to that point by July, is he a trade candidate, or is he a guy you're trying to build around, right? Do you try and lock him into a longer-term extension? But Libby's the one that, like, there's still some people seem to think, okay, can he pitch his way into the plans of the Cardinals? You know, BK's talked about it. Is it a make-or-break season for him as a St. Louis Cardinal in the rotation? You know, I don't know if I'm there yet, but he's the one that you hope that there's still some more stuff. Otherwise, yeah, I'm with you. Pallante, we know there's not going to be a ton of swing and miss.
It's funny. A lot of people on the Air Comfort Service text line, T-Bone, are saying the starting pitching's fine. This bullpen is awful. I think you actually saw a bullpen that was good last night. Now, it haven't been great up to that point, but Graceffo looked fine, although he got helped with the defense. Romero and O'Brien are the ones that you hang your hat on right now.
Yeah, and, like, Stanik's got stuff.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't know where it's going, so sometimes it's okay. That's not a benefit to him. Sometimes
Riley O'Brien didn't either.
Yeah, he's been able to hone it in, so maybe we can fix Stanek. I think the bullpen, I'm not too worried about the bullpen. I've said this before. That's not something that you can really, like, plan as part of your build, right?
Yeah.
Every year it's such a volatile industry that you just keep rotating through arms, and one year it's going to be good, one year it's not going to be good. Yes, it can sink playoff teams, as we've seen in the past. That's not something that I'm looking at going, boy, if they don't develop Swanson, how are they going to exit this rebuild without him? You know, I don't know how they do. No, I'm not looking at it that way. Yeah. So if this bullpen's bad, guess what? We'll throw some more stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
I think you texted it into our group text the other day that said Swanson might be the Ryan Fernandez.
Yeah.
To where, well, I'm not taking shots at the T-Bone 3. We'll get there as the season rolls on. But you're not wrong. Like, one season they're great. The next season, it's gone, and then you figure out what to do next. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. We are live up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cam is brought to you by Air Alliance Team. You could join us over there in the graveyard chat. Also, our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. Coming up at 15 minutes, does this single stat make you feel a little bit better about the direction that the Blues are heading? So we'll get to that in 15. But coming up next, Herrera and Scott showed some signs of life yesterday in that win. But they're with tools that they're not known for being able to utilize. So we'll discuss that and the Nathan Church experiment, which might be falling flat, next here on 101 ESPN. So last night they didn't have the offensive onslaught that we saw the Cardinals put up over their first few games, but still found a way to put up 3 runs and get multiple hits from guys like JJ Wetherholt and from Victor Scott. And both Victor Scott and Ivan Herrera had very interesting games last night, T-Bone. With Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. No BK today, homesick with the kiddo. He'll be back with us tomorrow. Victor Scott goes 2 for 3 last night, doesn't pick up an RBI, but does score a run, and a pretty impactful run with his speed to where he basically forced the Mets to overthrow their cutoff man to try and keep him from scoring, which allowed JJ Wetherholt to move a single to a double, which, again, I think that's... We talk so much about threat on the base paths in terms of his stolen bases, and he is very good there, but that's also where he's great, to where you can force guys to make errors in the field to allow your other guys that are making plays on the base paths to put themselves in an ideal position. And Victor Scott also, you told me, 2 really hard hit balls, which that's not what he's known for, man. The offense that he has provided have been bunt singles up until last night. And then you get Ivan Herrera, who does pick up 2 RBI, goes 1 for 2, but the bigger story for him has been behind the plate. Like, offense is slow out of the gate, coming for a guy that dealt with a lot of injuries early on. But Ivan Herrera, in now 2 starts behind the plate, has caught Pallante last night, and Michael McGreevy was his other start, who went 6 innings, did not give up a hit. We're seeing the tools of these guys, but they're tools that I don't know if we expected it to impact the team the same way. Like Victor Scott, I thought this was going to be all defense and stealing bases, but last night coming up with some significant hits, and you hope he's heating up. And then Ivan Herrera, you know the bat's going to come, but behind the plate is actually something that people are talking more about with Ivan.
Yeah, the Cardinals seem pleased with what Herrera's doing behind the plate when it comes to his game calling. You know, him getting a 2-run double last night, that we kind of expect from Ivan. But
that's going to keep growing.
Yeah, and like you said, I think part of the reason he's kind of looked out of place a little bit in terms of at the plate as a hitter has because he didn't get much of a spring because he's dealing with injuries. So I think that's coming along. That I have no concern about. But the defense is the thing that kind of is the biggest storyline for Ivan Herrera this year, which is he a catcher for the Cardinals, and is he the catcher for the long term? And look, the 2 things that he had to work on, I mean, there were 2 pretty big things, was 1, game calling. I mean, we basically heard the Cardinals publicly say, hey, he wasn't a very good game caller behind the plate in years past. And then the other one is he going to be able to catch base stealers if they try to steal a bag on him? We haven't learned anything about that yet because in his 2 starts behind the plate, nobody's tried to steal a base on him.
Scared of him, T-Bone.
That could be it. Or maybe there's other guys on in front of them to where they don't want to do it.
That's also it.
But if Herrera has become a good catcher behind the plate in terms of game calling, which this is just one of those, like, I don't care what the stats say. I don't care that McGreevy threw 6 no-hit innings. I don't care what Pallante threw a shutout through 5. At some point, I have to give credit to the pitcher for, executing the pitches, not giving credit to the guy that called what pitch we're throwing. But if the Cardinals are telling us the truth and they seem happy with what he's doing behind the plate, boy, that's an encouraging sign. And, as they start to kind of build him back into this role, it looks clear right now that the plan is catch maybe 1 game a series because that's what he did against Tampa Bay. That's what he did, at least so far, or that's what he is doing against the Mets because he's not a catcher today in the lineup. If they slowly start to build him into that and he can kind of really showcase this ability of, hey, he's a good game caller, we'll see about the stolen base thing, just opens a little bit more things up for the Cardinals for their lineup as we get deeper into the season, which is good for them because you can put him behind the plate. With his production, he'll be one of the best catchers offensively with his output. And then it frees up that DH spot for a guy like Gorman for days when you need him to be off. Or if this outfield competition becomes a real thing and you get guys that are hitting very well, like when Nootbaar comes back, for example. Let's say Nathan Church or Thomas Ajayce's been playing well while he's been out. Okay, well, great. I have more at-bats unlocked by putting Herrera behind the plate for that DH spot. So hearing what we've seen in small sample size in just 2 games is very encouraging for Ivan Herrera behind the plate for his defense. Again, we'll see about the stolen base numbers. And then to your point on Victor Scott, yesterday was the first time so far this year where I've looked at him and went, okay, that looks good at the plate. Because you're right, a lot of what his on-base percentage have been carried by so far this year was his bunting, which is great. He should be utilizing that because I don't know that he's going to be a guy that can hit 3 hard hit balls in a game like he did last night. But if he's going to get to what we talked about after opening day, where we flirted with the idea of 60 stolen bases, he's going to have to bump that average up to like 230, 240 so he can drive up that on base with his already pretty good walk percentage. Last night was the first game where I left going, okay, that looked pretty good. Now, I don't know that that's sustainable, but at least that was the first signs of progress for Victor Scott at the plate.
Yeah, I mean, Victor Scott, he's got 7 hits so far this season, 2 last night's game. And with the exception of those 2 in last night's game, he's only got 1 other hit. The others have been bunts that have led to hits, which, again, it's a tool, it's an asset, and as a double leadoff guy hitting in the 9-hole, man, that's a great thing to have for Victor Scott, plus great speed on the base paths and really good defense. The Herrera one, I will say, I'll give him credit. I'm with you, like, I got to give credit to the pitchers, too. Like, the pitchers are executing their game plan just as much as Herrera's executing his, but neither McGreevy nor Pallante looked uncomfortable on the mound. And, like, if you got a catcher that you're not comfortable with, we remember how people reacted to Wilson Contreras that first year, where Jack Flaherty threw him under the bus and then backed up over him. Like, you could tell guys were nervous or uncomfortable with their catcher. Like, they are not uncomfortable with Herrera, at least in that first round of starts. I'm not putting too much stock into it now. I feel like the entire Cardinals motto is, let's talk about this in a month. Because, again, with Herrera, the more you get behind the plate, how much more comfortable. I think I saw Jeff Jones report that Ollie said earlier today that they're basically going to be splitting up the catching with Pages and Herrera for the time being, with Pozo being more in the mix as a bench bat and a right-handed backup at first. So it's those two guys. There's no Pozo behind the plate, and you're going to be getting some ins and outs with those. By the way, it also says the Cardinals game is going to be officially delayed, and the first pitch will be determined. Yeah, I know. Who could have seen that one coming with all of the rain that we had this morning? You mentioned the outfield, T-Bone. I think it's time to at least start talking about Nathan Church. I'm not here to say send him down and bring up somebody else, but he started off the season red hot. Since that opening day, he's 0 for 12. He's moving, if they play today, over to right field. Thomas Ajayce's moving into left field. He's got incredible defense. I'm not taking anything away from that. But this was what I was talking about before the season of, like, if Nathan Church isn't hitting, he provides good defense, but it's kind of a, for lack of a better phrase, an easy out right now in the lineup. And I don't know how much longer that experiment will go on. I saw an interview that Nelson Velasquez did, I think it was yesterday in Memphis before they started their season, where he said, like, I know there's people in St. Louis that want me up there. I hope to be up there sooner rather than later. He's another one of those guys, Nathan Church, that's just in that experimental run to where how much longer do you let that go before you start looking at other options if he struggles at the plate?
Yeah, I still think there's plenty of time for Church, and I find it interesting that today they're giving Walker the day off where they put Church in right field. They had talked about that publicly, right? Like, Church was going to spell some days for Walker. So they're still going to give him a long leash here. He does look, last night he looked overpowered. Now, that could just be Kodai Senga, because Senga, as Juan Soto had said, is the ace of that staff. That's possible. It's just something to keep in mind. Like you mentioned, his numbers, 0 for 12 with 6 strikeouts over the last 3 games since he's been in the lineup. He's starting to look a little bit more like the old Church. I still think you give him plenty of runway. Like, I think this first month is all Church, Sajacy, and Walker kind of rotating in those 3 spots. Yeah. And really Sajacy and Church rotating in left field. And with those couple of off days for Walker, and we'll see Scott will get some off days as well. But yeah, right now he looks like he's starting to look like he did last year, which is a little overpowered. Things look a little sped up on him. We'll see if this is just one of those, hey, it's a 3-game sample size, or if this is more of, this is who Nathan Church is. And as we've talked about, he's under pressure to try and hold on to that job, because if he doesn't hit for a 2-week stretch, guess what? They can start to make a reason for Thomas Ajayce to be in the lineup. You know, I mean, you mentioned Velasquez. He's not off to a great start.
0 for 11 with 5 strikeouts.
Yeah, so he's kind of the guy BK was telling us about. But if he gets hot, he's another name to keep an eye on in that spot. But yeah, Nathan Church right now does look a little overpowered at the plate.
Yeah. And you know what? If he's a 4th outfielder with really good defense and then occasionally come into a game when Newpart's healthy, yeah, that's a win.
That's a win for, where was he drafted at? He was like a
I just had it popped up.
But, like, if you get that out of a 5th-round pick, a 4th outfielder that has good defense, like you were talking about.
11th round pick.
Yeah, that's a huge win if he's a fourth
and it's a
outfielder.
huge win for him to be at the major league level if you can provide really good defense wherever you're asked and occasionally come up with a big hit when you come off of the bench. It's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Again, if you missed it, Cardinals game, according to Jeff Jones, starts in a delay. So we'll keep you posted if that first pitch happens between the Cardinals and Mets. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll have questions and answers. You send us your questions to our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. We'll answer them. But coming up next, I saw a stat this morning about Blues rookies and where they rank in the National Hockey League. Does this make you feel better about the direction that they're heading in? Plus, what are you keeping an eye on in the final 9 games? We'll discuss that next year on 101 ESPN. You might be looking outside and hear me talk about Ted Drews and say, Alex, it's raining out there. It's not time for frozen custard. Wrong. It's always time for frozen custard, especially when it comes to Ted Drews. The St. Louis tradition that has been around since 1929 is back for its 97th year. It's officially open off of Chippewa. And what that means to me is warmer weather. What that means is more time spent outside and more time spent together with family and friends. And I love that about Ted Drews because every time you drive by, you see rounds of people in the parking lot sitting around enjoying that delicious frozen custard and spending time together. It's traditions that I got to build with my family and I get to do now with my girls and my wife. So make sure you're doing that. Take advantage of it. Go out there off of Chippewa, enjoy the weather, and enjoy that frozen custard. Mix and match, make your specialty flavors, whatever you want. Pro tip, buy it in bulk, bring it home, have Ted Drews whenever you need it. I've already done so, and I'm going to have some at our Easter dinner this Sunday. Plus, while you're there, walk across the parking lot, check out their gift shop and historical museum. You could see tons of Ted Drews memorabilia throughout the years, as well as Ted Drews apparel and Ted Drews gift cards. Plus, if you or you know someone is looking for a job this spring and summer season, Ted Drews is hiring, and you can apply online at teddrews.com. Frozen custard back for its 97th season. Real custard, real tradition. Ted Drews, it's St. Louis.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night, the St. Louis Cardinals shut out the New York Mets 3-0. They're supposed to have Game 3 starting today at 12 o'clock, but they are officially in a rain delay. If we get any updates on the Cardinals game throughout the show today, we'll be sure to bring them to you here on BK and Ferrario. Blues will be back in action tonight as they visit the LA Kings. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 8 o'clock with Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
So as I was doing some of my prep last night for tonight's Blues broadcast, as Tebow mentioned there in the update, Blues and Kings, I got pregame starting at 7. I came across this nugget. The Blues have 34 goals by their rookies this season, which is third most in the National Hockey League, behind the Montreal Canadiens and the New York Islanders. They're both tied for first with 39 total goals. But the Blues also have 79 points from their rookies, which ranks fourth in the National Hockey League. Chicago's got 109 points. They're first. They also have like an entire roster that's filled with rookies, so it makes sense that they're that high up there. But when I looked at that, T-Bone, and I looked at Montreal, I looked at the Islanders, and then you look at the Blues. Montreal tanked there for a little bit. Like, they were a team that was at the bottom of the standings probably consistently from 2022 up until, last year, 2 years ago? They were able to draft Cole Caulfield, Demidov. They have a couple of other guys. Oliver Kapanen's been really good for them, which puts them at that top spot with 39 goals. And I would imagine their points are higher than the Blues as well with 79. The Islanders just drafted Matthew Schaefer. They've had Matt Barzal. They've drafted a lot of significant pieces. Does that number, those numbers, where the Blues rank third in goals amongst rookies in the NHL, fourth in points amongst rookies in the NHL, make you feel better about the direction they're headed with this team, which is some uncertainty, but the direction they're headed with this team in the offseason?
I know this is going to feel like a weird answer. No.
How dare you?
And the reason I say that is, does it even matter if you don't have a star? Otherwise, look at them right now, right? Like, the way that they built, where they had Kyrou coming up through the system, Neighbors was coming up through the system, and we looked at those guys and said, wow, these guys are going to be pieces that help them when the core kind of shifts to them, with Thomas in there as well. And they're just kind of stuck right now, right? Like, everything that you said with those numbers, I'm thinking of the guys that would be contributing to that. I look at a Dalibor Dvorsky and I go, I really like what we're seeing from him. Looks like a middle six center. Mm-hmm. That's probably his floor, and his ceiling. His floor is probably a third line center. His ceiling's a second line center, but I don't know if he's a big point producer. Snuggerud is one that I'm willing to dream on a little bit, as maybe he can become that guy as a pure shooter. But even though I see him, I still go, yeah, I kind of think he's going to fall more into the Kyrou range. And I know that sounds weird, but when I say that, I mean a 30-plus goal scorer every year, but never really viewed as a superstar. And then you've got Lindstein, who looks like a good piece, and Stenberg looks like he's just a really good hockey player. He kind of looks like your typical Blues rookie, and that guy's just really good, So the reason I say that is, does it make me feel better? No, because I don't know that it means anything until there's a superstar in the fold. And when there is, then you add in those complementary pieces like these guys and these rookies that are starting to score, and you really have something that you're cooking with. But otherwise, to me, you just end up being kind of stuck in place, kind of stuck in the ugly middle. Chicago's not a great example of this, but look at them. Bedard's not become a superstar. Yeah. And you mentioned that they've got a bunch of rookies that are producing for them. They don't feel like they're going anywhere. You know why? Because they don't have a superstar to lift up the ceiling. Why do the Sharks feel like a team that is on the rise? Because they have a Celebrini. They have a true superstar that's in the building. When you don't have one, I just think you end up being kind of stuck in the mud.
It's no coincidence that the team that they're playing, I think, is a perfect comparison for the Blues. Who's the superstar on the Kings? That's not Kopitar or Doughty.
Don't have one.
They got Kempe. Kempe's probably the closest thing, but I think Holloway's a lot like Kempe. But they don't have a Macklin Celebrini. Quentin Byfield has not been the star that they hoped he was. I'm saying this, but I also agree the opposite side. I think it does point at least a really good direction. It's a fair point, T-Bone. Let me ask you this, though, and try and sway you. Who would you say, with the exception of Lane Hudson, because I think a lot of people would say he's a superstar, or at least a star. On the forward side of things, who's the star for the Montreal Canadiens?
I would say Kurt Suzuki would be
Nick Suzuki.
Nick Suzuki.
That's the catcher from the Angels. You love Kurt Suzuki.
And
Kurt Suzuki and Ville Husso have posters up in T-Bone's apartment.
Yeah, above my bed.
That's weird. Nick Suzuki's a very good one, but we've made the comp that when Robert Thomas is healthy, he can be a Nick Suzuki. Like, I think those are fair comparisons. Maybe some would push back on it because Suzuki's done it, Robert Thomas hasn't. But their points are pretty similar. Cole Caulfield's another one. And nobody on this team is putting up 50 goals. Cole Caulfield is doing that right now. But the reason I ask this is because I look at Ivan Demidov, and I think a lot of people look at this kid right now and say, that's a superstar in the making. Slavkovsky is another one. That's a superstar in the making. Demidov's got 58 points, who is at the top of the rookies this season. Jimmy Snuggerud is tied for third. He's in third because there's a tie for second place. He's got 39 points. But I was looking at this last night. Demidov played 74 games this season. He has not missed a game. He's got 58 points. Jimmy Snuggerud has missed 13 games. And I'm not saying he'd be a point-per-game player, but you'd imagine if he played in the 13 games for how he's performing right now, he'd probably put up 8 to 10 more points. You'd be talking about 49 to 50 points in 70-plus games played. Again, I'm not saying he's a superstar like Demidov looks like he's going to be, but it gives you an opportunity to dream on it. And here was my perception when I looked at that number, and I said, this is a good spot to be in. Because let's take you down the other path that the Blues start off the season better. They're winning. They're in the playoff conversation. They're what Doug Armstrong thought to where they'd be like a 95-point team this season. I don't think Dvorsky is on this team, if that's the case. I don't think Lindstein is on this team. I don't think Otto Stenberg is on this team. So that's three guys that you have gotten a jump start on to see what the development looks like at the NHL level. On top of that, I don't think they claim Berggren. I don't think they claim Jack Finley. Like, there's guys that aren't on this team that are on this team because of the position that they're in. And a lot of these guys are playing some meaningful hockey. Now, I know it doesn't matter as much if you don't get into the playoffs. I think it at least pushes you towards the direction you want to go, rather than being stuck like the LA Kings. Because the LA Kings are going to go into the offseason with a lot of uncertainty. Kopitar's gone. Doughty's getting older. None of their guys that they drafted have turned into stars or superstars for them. At least for the Blues, now you get to dream on Jimmy Snuggerud. Now you look at Dalibor Dvorsky and say, with development, he's a number 2 center. Now you look at Lindstein and say, hey, he could play at the NHL, and he could provide some offense for us. You're right in the sense, does it matter if you don't have the star? But maybe this offseason is the one where you get that star. And you can't live on maybe, I understand that. But if great things happen and you draft Ivar Stenberg or Gavin McKenna or go get a defenseman that becomes a superstar for your squad, I think that puts you more in line where the Montreal Canadiens are in terms of look at the core that they have, all of these young guys that are continuing to develop, because these guys have put themselves in the position to put up these points and these goals early on.
Yeah, and, the text line brings up the Kings have Panarin. Forgot about him. He was acquired at the deadline.
Let's be honest, though. Panarin's in a win-now mode where he's probably got a couple more years of being great. Does anybody think the LA Kings are winning a Stanley Cup in the next 2 years?
No.
They're barely going to make the playoffs this year.
They haven't had the development piece. Like, if they had the Blues roster and you put Panarin on it, I feel a little bit better about it.
If Panarin was on this roster at the beginning of the season, I think you're talking playoffs.
Yeah, but the reason I bring that up is because, like you mentioned, Byfield hasn't really developed what they want to be.
Yeah.
But to your point, yes, I like some of these pieces that they have. I don't know that you're going anywhere meaningful without that superstar. I've seen a lot of pushback. Someone said, look, guys, I don't know if I agree. Look at the Edmonton Oilers. They have a superstar and they haven't won a cup. Yeah, but they got to 2 Stanley Cups, right? Sure, they didn't win it, but they got there. And if you look at the LA Kings...
Not just got there. They got to Game 7 in both of them.
Yeah.
You got to win. If we got to a Game 7 as Blues fans, that's a win.
Yeah, and they just haven't run into a buzzsaw called the Florida Panthers and their dynasty. But I look at that and I say, even if, what you're saying, if these guys do develop, and there are a couple potential outs for the St. Louis Blues, maybe I'm just wrong on Snuggerud or I'm just wrong on Dylan Holloway, and they stay healthy and they take that next step, and along with Thomas, right? Thomas stays healthy, and this first line is legitimate. Maybe there is a chance that ends up being the case where those guys then become superstars because of it. But without him, like I think your ceiling is so limited to where like you look at the LA Kings, who we brought up there. The LA Kings during this retool, the best they've gotten is to the first round. You know, I would believe that a roster where Holloway ends up being just a 30-goal scorer, Snuggerud's a 30-goal scorer, Thomas is a
20 to 25 point per game
player.
Mm-hmm.
I can believe that team can make the playoffs. Are they doing anything meaningful? I'm not sure that they are. They don't have someone that really pushes that ceiling forward, like with the Oilers, where they have McDavid doing that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Canadians as an example. Like, I get it. Nick Suzuki.
Not Kurt. Kurt's good too, though.
We want Thomas to be that guy that's a 92-point player. We want someone to develop into the Caulfield as a point-per-game player. Maybe not the 50 goals, but a point-per-game winger.
Yeah.
Okay, the winger one I'm still more open-minded to. I just can't buy it on that Thomas is going to develop into Nick Suzuki. He hasn't done it yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm at the point where I'm tired of dreaming on what he's going to be. At some point, you have to just admit Thomas is capped at about an 85, 86-point player, and that's a really good player, but that's not a superstar, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, and if you don't have that guy, you can have all these development complementary pieces coming. As we saw with the Blues last year, it's so hard to build pack mentality.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of what it feels like they're going towards again, is crescendoing to we need to be pack mentality again. And I saw someone say Carbonneau's our 50-goal scorer. I don't think Carbonneau's that guy.
It's too hard to say for a guy that is doing it in
Hearing
juniors.
the write-ups on him, they say he's more of a power forward.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to bet on a power forward scoring 50 goals. I think you need to be a pure sniper like a Caulfield or Snuggerud shot.
Or you got to be like a pure power forward like a
with
Zach
a McDavid
Hyman
on your line.
Yeah, and I don't view him as a power forward. I think he's got power, but I think he's got the shot. So that's why I just don't know. Like, I mean, everybody sees the numbers he's putting up in the QMJHL. Guys, Ty Ratty had a 55-goal season in the QMJHL. Like, sometimes it doesn't translate to the NHL. Now, I think it will for Carbonneau, but I can't just put the star label on him in juniors when you haven't even seen it at the NHL level. I mean, you're not wrong with Thomas, and it's why I find the decisions that they make this offseason fascinating, because I think there are some that believe the same way that you do, T-Bone, of, look, this guy's an 85-point player, and that's great, but you're not going any further with that. If that's what the Blues see, then you understand why they're like, yeah, but we'll move them and see if we can go find the 90-point scorer or the 100-point scorer in a trade. I'm fascinated to see it, but when I saw that number from the rookies, it's like, man, that's so much of a better position to be in than what you were 2 years ago when you were dreaming on these guys and wondering what they were. Now it's paying off, and now you're seeing them produce at the NHL level. It's just, can you get to that next level with them, which is the 40 goals, the 90 points, the 100-point player, which is what teams like Montreal and the New York Islanders have accomplished. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get more into the Blues. Chris Kerber is going to join us at 12:30 to talk a little bit about Blues and Kings tonight. But coming up next, 314-399-9646. That's our Air Comfort Service text line. You send us questions. We'll answer them next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line, our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You can join us over there in the Graveyard Chat as we get to some of your questions here on BK and Ferrario. From the 314, guys, were Braden Shen and Justin Falk holding back the Blues' offensive potential? Clearly, as the great as they've been. No, it's not like their offense has been dominant since. I think they're middle of the pack offensively, right around where they were before the Olympic break.
They could use someone on their second or third line.
They could use a second line center that's got 5 goals and 10 points in 13 games right now, which is what Braden Shen has with the Islanders. I will say, and I don't think Falk is holding back their potential, but Falk was blocking guys from getting more reps.
Yeah, like Lindstein.
Yeah, like Lindstein being able to play right now is massive for this team. And then Logan Mailloux. Logan Mailloux playing on the top pair, on top of the fact that Mailloux and Broberg are getting power play time. So I don't think they were holding back their potential. I think they were blocking opportunities, at least on the defensive side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they were, at least Falk was for sure, potentially blocking spots for guys, mainly Lindstein, that was able to get up here. And it's fair on Mailloux getting to play up a notch. I don't know that Shen was really blocking anybody because, look at what the Blues are doing now with the center. They put Booch there.
Right.
And as we've seen, they haven't really had a second or third line post-deadline. And not like they had a great one pre-deadline, but they haven't really had any depth of scoring post-deadline. So I don't think it's anything that's really hampered the Blues, but I would agree with you on the sentiment of Falk. He was more blocking just a player from being here. From
the 636, do you guys envision Jiricek and Carbonneau both starting the season next year on the NHL roster? Jiricek, I do, as long as he has a good camp and has a good offseason. I mean, there's a clear spot for him right now. It's in the third pair defensively. I mean, you're playing Justin Hall. That's typically what you'd use for a seventh defenseman. Carbonneau's the one I just don't know. We'll talk about this in the 1 o'clock hour, but that's what I think you're evaluating right now. What you're watching for as a Blues fan down the stretch is who fits into this timeline. I don't know where Carbonneau plays if he comes to this roster. I think if he's good enough, they'll find a spot for him. But there's more of a chance Carbonneau starts in the minors than Jiricek, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Jiricek's here. I think there's a better chance Carbonneau's in the minors. I lean towards Carbonneau's going to be here, though. And, I know this sucks to say, but I brought this up yesterday when we kind of talked about this. Looking at their lineup now, let's say they don't trade Kyrou, because Kyrou's probably the one that really dictates the chances of Carbonneau being here. Kyrou's dealt, Carbonneau's probably here. If Kyrou's not dealt, it becomes a little bit more of a question. I like Berggren's game. I'm playing Carbonneau over Berggren.
Probably.
So, I still lean that he's probably going to be here. I think it's 70% chance both are here to start next year.
From the 319, did you guys see the missed call by Buckner again last night? With ABS and review, how much longer does he last in the league?
He's pretty well protected by the union. But, yeah, last night was not another good look for Buckner. He feels kind of like what's going to happen to Angel Hernandez. Where was he? Let me look at the camera when I say this. Retired, in air quotes. Yeah, they basically fired him. They gave him a good payment. I think that's probably going to happen for Buckner sooner rather than later.
Questions, guys. Do you agree that batting Winn at cleanup is a bad decision and needs to change immediately? We're going to talk about this a little bit later. What are you changing it with? Sure, you can hate it as much as you want that he is just not the prototypical 4-hole hitter. Who are you putting there? I mean, yeah, sure, put Ivan Herrera there. That means Winn's hitting in the 2-hole. I mean, you're putting Walker there? No. You're putting Gorman there? No. You're putting Urias there? Gorman? No, don't get too excited. I know he hit a home run. It doesn't count.
If
it doesn't count.
Could hit Urias clean up.
I just I get you're frustrated. Welcome to the rebuild. This is what happens.
Yeah, like you said, we'll talk about it later, but my first reaction when I see it, in theory, yes. Can they keep doing this? I don't think they're ultimately going to. I think at some point they're going to move Winn out of cleanup. But in theory, yeah, Winn's not a cleanup hitter. We all agree on that. When you think of cleanup hitter, you think 30 bombs, 100 RBIs. Winn's not that guy. Probably they don't have many options, right? You're either going to have a hole in the 2 spot because Winn's not your best hitter, and you hit your best hitter in the 2 spot, or you're going to have a hole at the cleanup spot. So you're going to have a hole somewhere. It's just a matter of trying to pick and choose what you believe is the best path for that. Right now, they believe it's having that hole in the 4 spot with Winn.
If Binnington is still with the Blues next season, is he still the number 1, or does Hofer get that opportunity because he's been so good?
Hofer's already the number 1.
Yeah, Hofer's the number 1. Two things can be true. Hofer can be your number 1, and Binnington can still be on this roster. And it's why I think so many people look at it and say, well, Binnington's as good as gone next year. I don't agree with that. I think if they get a good offer for him, they'll let Binnington decide if he wants to go because it's the respect to a guy who deserves it. But, guys, they play 84 games next season. you're going to need a goaltender to play 40 to 41 of those. I mean, right now, if I'm not mistaken, they're pretty even in terms of games played. Hofer started 40, or played in 40. Binnington's played in 38. By the end of the season, it would not surprise me one bit if Hofer has played in, 40?
So you got 9 more games left, so I'd say give him
5 and give
more.
Binnington 4, maybe? I mean, they got one more back-to-back, so Binnington's at least getting one. I would imagine Hofer gets this start again tonight, although maybe they go to Binnington tonight because Hofer struggled in the last game. This is a 1-2 punch that you're going to need again next year if you want to have any success. Final one, which will deep tease this one, T-Bone. Do you think that the Cardinals should give JJ Wetherholt a 8-year, $150 million contract extension? We will discuss that next because there's some scuttlebutt around Major League Baseball that the Cardinals could be extending JJ Wetherholt. What does that mean for him? And what does that mean for Heim if that's the decision that they make for the Cardinals? That's next here on 101 ESPN. A little bit of news to pass along before we get into JJ Wetherholt and a possible contract extension. Jimmy Snuggerud was just named the NHL Rookie of the Month of March. He posted 7 goals and 15 points in 14 games to help the Blues move to 10-2-2 in the month of March. He beat out Matthew Schaefer, Callum Ritchie from the New York Islanders, Gabe Perreault from the Rangers, Dobes from Montreal, along with Demidov. This is some of the company that he is in terms of rookies to get this honor. Matthew Schaefer was named the player of the Rookie of the Month in October. Minnesota's goaltender Jesper Wallstedt was named in November. Demidov was named the player of the Rookie of the Month in December, and then Fraser Minton was just named the Rookie of the Month in January. He's the first Blues skater to be named player or Rookie of the Month since Vladimir Tarasenko did it back in 2013, and he is the first Blues rookie to be named Rookie of the Month since Jordan Binnington was named it March and February of 2019, which is just insane to put out there. So, again, we just had this conversation of the star T-Bone, and I don't know what it's going to look like long term, but I mean, that's some incredible company to be in if you're Jimmy Snuggerud, to edge out those guys, but also to be named with Schaefer, Demidov, Wallstedt, Fraser Minton. All of these guys have been talked about in the National Hockey League this season.
Yeah, and he feels like, I don't know if you agree with this, is he their one out for the potential star that they've got left?
I think and Holloway.
Maybe Thomas.
I think Holloway's got it too.
That's fair. I mean, when we've seen Holloway healthy, he looks unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just, can you be healthy?
Yeah, and it comes like with Vladdy. Like, you see this a little bit with Snuggerud. His shot's more impressive than his other tool, which would be his passing. But remember, the other thing with Vladdy, who you mentioned, there was the last Blues skater to win Rookie of the Month. Vladdy was also very well known for his playmaking ability and his passing skills. Like, Hitchcock would talk about that all the time. Snuggerud's got a little bit of that in him. But, yeah, I think he's like the one last chance potentially on the current roster. Because, like, I just don't know if there's more there to Thomas's game. Maybe if Snuggerud takes the next step, Thomas comes with him. They kind of get dragged along together. But that's impressive to see that he's able to win Rookie of the Month and score 7 goals in that stretch, by the way. And we've seen that. It's the reason the Blues got back into the playoff race for that fun little moment until they lost against the Sharks.
Right. So, again, Jimmy Snuggerud named Rookie of the Month in the National Hockey League, and that's, of course, coming on the hands of him. I think he was, the third star of the week about 4 weeks ago in the NHL. So the awards keep piling up for Jimmy Snuggerud. Maybe another rookie in the St. Louis system gets that honor. JJ Wetherholt just has continued to be impressive. He went 2 for 4 last night, scored a run, did have 2 strikeouts. He's got an OPS of 798 right now so far through 5 games this season. And T-Bone, you sent this to us last night. It's over on the New York Post, so can't pull up the subscription on this one. But it sounds like John Heyman put out there that there's interest from the Cardinals side of giving a contract extension, a long-term extension to JJ Wetherholt, and makes sense on the hands of what we just discussed with the Brewers extending a kid who has never even seen Major League Baseball yet. Colt Emerson with the Seattle Mariners gets a contract extension. Whatever the reasoning behind it, there are teams that are looking at these younger players saying, we've got to get this kid locked up now. You're the king of don't give guys contract extensions, T-Bone. Where are you at on this in terms of JJ Wetherholt and a contract extension?
I think it'd be a bad idea from Heim if they were to extend JJ Wetherholt already. I just don't like the idea of doing a contract extension before you really know what a guy is at the major league level. We've seen prospects in the past, right? Like, I saw an article today, I think it was on Redbird Rants, who do great stuff about why it would make sense to extend JJ Wetherholt. And they pointed to, like, look at his tools, right? His tools, he's got a high ceiling. Okay, I agree, but we would have said the same thing about Walker, and look at how he flamed out after year 1. And if you had given him a contract extension, look, it's not like it would be overly expensive. It's probably not even $100 million would be my guess. It would be probably more of the Colt Emerson deal, which was 8 years, $95 million. And then you might even get into the idea of, there'll be incentive-based stuff to get it past $100 million in that point with some team options as well. But I just don't think there's any reason to lock him up right now. I like what we're seeing from JJ Wetherholt. He looks like he might exceed my expectations so far. But I got to see what he looks like when baseball adjusts to him, man, before I'm willing to hand out any kind of guarantees in dollars for him. And the other thing, too, is, and BK mentioned this briefly yesterday, look at the flexibility the Cardinals have right now. Now, it's not like that contract would really hinder their capabilities and what they do in future years, but I like seeing kind of a blank checkbook right now for what you're able to do as an organization and what you want to do moving forward. I just wouldn't do this. I think it's too soon. I hate handing out contract extensions in general, and I really hate them when we're talking about a guy that's been in the big leagues for 6 days in total and played 5 total games.
I'm fine with it. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and beat down the door saying you have to sign JJ Wetherholt to a contract extension. I've already seen a couple of people over on the Air Comfort Service text line saying, have the Cardinals not learned, don't give contract extensions to guys who haven't proven it yet in the major leagues. I get it. To me, JJ Wetherholt's in a different atmosphere, though, because we're seeing it right now, and I know it's a rookie season, but there's been so much hype around him. Here's the other reason why I would be fine with it. I do think it's the ability for Heim to kind of put the stamp on this rebuild and say, here's the face of it moving forward. Now, you could fail. You could fall flat. This kid could be nothing more than a Brendan Donovan. But if he's not, let's go down the hypothetical path of like, hey, he does become that high ceiling player that we've all talked about. He's got Bo Bichette in him. He's got 25 home runs and can be that 1B to a superstar trio that you need to win in Major League Baseball today. Or maybe life changes with the new salary cap and the CBA if things go that direction for Major League Baseball and you get a guy on a cheaper deal. I think it's important to at least place that flagpole at some point in your group and say, this is the direction we're heading and this is the kid that's there. If he becomes it, you need to pay him no matter what. So it doesn't matter if you're a well-run organization. If a guy is a star, you pay him what he is worth no matter what. But if you believe the future and this is just going to continue trending up and this is the guy that kind of is the face of what you're trying to accomplish, then I'm fine with it. I think it's something that Major League Baseball is doing right now. You're betting on him, and you better not bet incorrectly. I will ask this question, though, too. Let's say you go down that path. One, what are fans' reactions to it if that's the first big move he makes? And two, what does that say about Mason Winn's role on this team?
I don't think it deals with anything with Mason Winn. Because
but you'd agree that that would have been the guy that you'd look at and be like, that's the guy you give a contract extension to.
I wouldn't have.
Well, I shouldn't have asked you that question.
I don't think he has become that, because how can you justify extending a guy that was below league average offensively last year?
But what I'm saying is in that first year where all of the hype was there, you saw him play Gold Glove defense, his bat was at least good and you could dream on it a little bit. They said, we're not giving that guy an extension yet. We're going to let this play out.
I just don't think he ever profiled as a guy that was going to become a true star. He may have been a guy in St. Louis that was a face of this franchise, but I don't think he was ever a guy that really profiled into that. And I'm not saying that you rule out an extension for Winn at some point. He's got a lot to prove to become that guy, though, especially at the plate. Right now, he looks like just a defense-first player than anything else. So I don't think there's anything with that. Based on what we're seeing on the text line, I think fans would love a JJ Wetherholt contract extension because of everything that you were saying. That it kind of puts the flag into this is who is the guy that's going to lead the Cardinals through the rebuild, right? He is the focal point of it. That doesn't mean he ends up becoming the true number one star of it. That could eventually become, Rodriguez or Baez or someone else that they bring in free agency to potentially be that first offensive piece. But I think Cardinals fans would like the idea of locking him up as hey, this is the first pillar of this rebuild. We finally got the answer of this is the first guy that is going to be the first pillar of the rebuild for what we're building towards. I would argue you can already define that without even giving him a contract extension, which is why I wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But I understand. The other thing, too, is if you think he is going to be a star, which the Cardinals seem to think he is, you're hoping that you get some good surplus value on his deal. Because if he ends up becoming a stud and you don't sign him to a contract extension, he's going to get paid in the arbitration system. And then at some point when he gets into those free agent years, he'll get a huge contract as well. So that's what they're trying to do, is try and get some surplus value. I think if I'm Wetherholt's camp, I'm not signing a contract extension right now. I would bet on his tools and let him just play out the process and then force the Cardinals to pay him when he gets to free agency in like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I'm fine with this either way. Part of me wonders if this is just the state of the Major League Baseball because of where things are headed, or it's just teams that say, look, we want to lock up these younger players. I don't think this is something that they have to do. I do agree that, like, look, let it play itself out. And in 2 years from now, if he's still putting this together, you still have the opportunity to give him the contract extension. Maybe it's a little bit more money, but again, if the guy's performing, then it's worth paying that type of money. I find it impactful and interesting that if there's an interest to it, that this is the Cardinals saying this is a new era, and this is the guy that is going to be leading that new era. And then I'm be fascinated to see how he handles that hype around it, how he handles that pressure around it. I mean, we've already seen him be able to handle some pressure early on in his career, but this is even more pressure that you get put on to where it's like, we gave you the money, now go out there and continue to perform at that elite level that Major League Baseball hasn't even figured you out yet. And as you always kind of caution fans, T-Bone, Major League Baseball will adjust to you. How do you adjust to Major League Baseball? He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll chat with Chris Kerber from L.A. as the Blues get set to take on the L.A. Kings tonight. But coming up next, more likely to happen. You give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one's more likely to happen next here on 101 ESPN. Oh, this time of the year is so much fun. You got college basketball action this weekend. Baseball's in full swing. Yes, pun was intended there. And the playoff push in the NHL, which is why you need to be over on the Underdog app and enjoying all of it with the promo boosts that they offer you, with the fun mixing matching that you can get in on. Underdog is the perfect spot to be at for all of your needs when it comes to this time of the year. So, of course, I'm going to the Blues and Kings tonight, and I'm looking for the best play. So what I'm going with 4 picks, Blues and Kings tonight. I'm saying Adrian Kempe higher with shots on goal. I'm also saying, yes, Matthew Joseph is a member of the LA Kings, higher on 2.5 hits for Matthew Joseph. I'm also picking higher on shots on goal for Jimmy Snuggerud and higher on points for Jake Neighbors. All of those with the 40% profit boost that is offered, 16-1 payout. Download the Underdog app today. Use promo code BKO to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncpgambling.org. was a little worried that wasn't going to sound very good because my voice is about to be shot. 314-399-9646. I nailed it. I know I did. As our Air Comfort Service text line join in on the conversation, it's more likely to happen time. You give us two scenarios. We will tell you which is more likely to happen. Along with Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. No BK today as he's home sick with the kiddo. He'll be back with us hopefully tomorrow from 11 to 2. All right, T-Ball, more likely to happen. Jimmy Snuggerud pulls himself into the Rookie of the Year conversation this season, or Jordan Walker pulls himself back into the everyday outfielder core piece of the team conversation by the end of the season. Oh. By the way, if you're curious in terms of points, Jimmy Snuggerud's got 39, which is like fifth, and he's tied for second in goals with 17. 22, there's a three-way tie.
Yeah, I would say Snuggerud just because there's a lot for Walker to do to put himself back into this conversation of being part of the core moving forward with the Cardinals. And early signs seem to suggest maybe this is going to be the year it could happen. But like we talked about yesterday, and really for the first 5 games of the regular season, he's got a lot to prove. So I would say Snuggerud.
Yeah, I might Snuggerud as well. I think Walker is kind of out of that no matter what. Even if he has a great season, I think it would be a one great season. And if Baez is awesome, he might still get more playing time. The out for Walker is what Nootbaar looks like. Because if he's great, I think he's traded. Nathan Church hasn't looked that great right now, so there's still an out there. I think Snuggerud could get there. I don't know if he catches them in points. Frankly, I don't think it's going to happen. I think he could catch him in goals. I mean, 5 goals in the last 9 games. I mean, he just picked up 7 in the last, 2 weeks? Yeah. So he could do it. I don't know if he gets into the conversation to win it, but I think he could sneak into the finalists in terms of the top 3, depending on what his end of the season looks like. T-Bone?
I want to preface by saying I don't think it's likely this is going to happen for either of the 4 names I'm going to mention.
It's always a good way to go with it.
But more likely to happen, one of Snuggerud or Holloway become a consistent 35 to 40 goal scorer, or one of Herrera or Burleson become a consistent 30 to 35 home run hitter.
I would say Snuggerud or Holloway become a consistent 35. Did you say 35 to 40?
Yeah.
I'd say consistent 35 to 40 goal scorer. We saw it with Kyrou to where it was 3 straight years of him scoring 35 plus. I think Snuggerud and Holloway are better players. And if they keep Robert Thomas, and that's the line moving forward, you got to stay healthy. But if you're staying healthy, playing with Robert Thomas and on the number 1 power play, and this team continues to trend in the right direction, I think 35 is an easy get for one, if not both of those guys. I haven't seen Burleson do 30 home runs yet. Herrera, obviously, we haven't either. That's a lot more difficult to be consistent with, and especially when you're talking about the wear and tear on Herrera and what the future of Burleson can look like.
I would agree with you. I think it would be one of Snuggerud or Holloway that would do it. You mentioned Kyrou did it. These guys have got the shots to do it, right? Yeah. You have to have a shot to become a consistent 35 to 40 goal scorer. If you're a power forward, it can be more dependent on what your center's doing than it is your capabilities, as we've seen with kind of Zach Hyman, for example.
Yeah.
For Burley and Herrera, I like their bats. I don't know if they've got that upside to their power. I think they're both going to settle in like that 20 to 25 home run range and be good sluggers because they also add a bunch of doubles as well.
And that's what Burleson's been awesome. Like the fact that he's got that power to hit home runs, but more so than anything, make contact and create more opportunities in terms of doubles. That's where Burleson, I think, thrives. And Herrera, maybe he's got it. It's just, can you stay healthy? All right, from the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636, more likely to happen, the Blues win the lottery draft or Wetherholt hits 30 bombs?
I'll take the Blues win the lottery draft.
They got 2 outs with it, man. If Detroit continues to do, they're 10th right now in the Eastern Conference.
I don't know that if Wetherholt has 30 home run power, I don't think it's coming for sure this year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's going to have it, period, but I don't see him as a 30 home run guy in his rookie campaign.
More likely to happen this offseason, Snuggerud extension or JJ Wetherholt extension?
Snuggerud up for a contract?
No, he's got one more.
So
he can get an extension, though, this year. Because remember, he burned his first year of entry level last season when he played. So next season will be his final year before he's in RFA.
I'll say Snuggerud.
I'll say Snuggerud as well.
I'm not saying it would be like a long, 8-year deal.
No.
I could see a, 3-4 year bridge deal for him.
Honestly, I could see them saying 6 years to buy out all of your restricted free agency contracts.
I just not buying the Wetherholt thing. Based on what it seems John Heyman said was the Cardinals have interest in a Wetherholt extension. Okay, I could report that. Yeah, the Cardinals would love to lock him up to a team-friendly deal. does Wetherholt really want to sign that? Why not bet on himself as a former top 10 pick? So, yeah, I would say Snuggerud.
More likely to happen, the Cardinals score 3 or more runs today, or the Blues score 3 or more goals in tonight's game? I'll say Cardinals score 3 or run today.
I will, too. They seem to have Freddie Peralta's number, and the Blues have one line.
Well, and, I mean, depending on who they're going to get, I would imagine it's Darcy Kemper. I don't know. I haven't even seen what the line combinations are, but, like, Darcy Kemper has been really good against the Blues in his career, especially this season. Both games that the Blues have played against the Kings this season have been a loss in overtime and a loss in shootout. So I'll say the Cardinals score more than 3 runs because you're right. They seem to always have Freddie Peralta's number. More likely to happen, the Cardinals have a pitcher in the top 10 NL Cy Young voting, or the Cardinals have an outfielder make the All-Star game. I'm assuming they mean this season. Outfielder to make the All-Star game? I don't think you get one pitcher in the Cy Young conversation.
Unless May really bounces back, but, I mean, that's you're really only out there.
I don't know who your outfielder is that's making the All-Star game.
Yeah,
Scott,
I mean,
if he has a ton of bases stolen.
Even then, like the outfield, like the way they do it in the outfield for the All-Star game is it's not voted on by left, center, and right. It's just 3 outfielders.
Yeah.
Odds are none of them happen, but I guess I'll bet on the outfield.
Yeah.
Sure, Walker's all clicking, baby. Let's ride.
Walker's all of a sudden the core piece of the team moving forward. More likely to happen, JJ Wetherholt wins some kind of award, or Jimmy Snuggerud wins some kind of an award. Can include a team award championship. I'll go hockey because they give out awards for everything. Most gentlemen,
Lady Bing,
great defensive player, the comeback player. I'll go Jimmy Snuggerud win some type of an award in their career.
I'm trying to think because, like, for baseball, you've got Silver Slugger, probably not Wetherholt as a rookie. Rookie of the year, he'll potentially have a shot for, but that'll be tough.
I mean, Gold Glove, I guess.
Gold Glove. I don't know if, I mean, he's been good defensively this year, so he might be able to.
Second base, how many guys at second base win that award?
God, I don't even know who won it last year. Was it Horner?
Probably, but I mean, like, Donovan's won it as a utility piece.
Albies is always a guy that's there. Yeah, I'll go.
I think I'll go Wetherholt, actually.
I think I actually will, too, because I think there's better chance for more outs. I don't think Jimmy Snuggerud's winning Lady Bing.
This might be your best chance if he wins Rookie of the Year this season, depending on how good he is the rest of the way. It'll be tough, but it might be your best chance. All right, a couple more of these. What's more likely, Jordan Kyrou stays or Jordan Kyrou's traded? Kyrou's traded.
I think he's traded, too.
Yeah. I think
it's just run its course.
Yeah, I think we had all the reporting at the deadline, and those deals are tough to do at the deadline, but all of the reporting that it felt like both sides were looking for a split. And if this season finishes with no postseason, I have to imagine that both sides would kind of revisit that, and more teams would be willing to trade for him at that point. Final one, more likely to happen, the Blues have multiple 20-goal scorers, or the Cardinals end the season with multiple 20-home run hitters. Cardinals.
Yeah, I'll go Cardinals.
I think the Blues are going to have one 20-goal scorer, and it'll probably be Snuggerud.
What's he at now?
17? Booch is at 17 as well. I just don't know how much he's going to score the rest of the way.
Yeah, I would go Cardinals, multiple 20-homer guys. I mean, feels like more outs to that than the Blues, and the Blues are running out of time to get to that mark. Meanwhile, the Cardinals have 157 more games to go. Yeah, give me the Cardinals.
We'll talk about the Blues coming up in about 15. No, coming up next, we got Chris Kerber joining us. I forgot what time it was. Kerbs is going to join us from L.A., where the Blues are hitting the ice for morning skate before they drop the puck tonight against the L.A. Kings. Chris Kerber next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, listen, when you need to get that air conditioner fixed heading into the summer, or something's going wrong with it, when you bring somebody into your house, like the folks at Classic Air Care, you want to know that you're bringing in somebody with quality of service. You want to know that you're bringing in some people and a tech that knows what they're doing, where the company cares and emphasizes customer service about getting it right. And the next thing that's most important is also trust. You've got to be able to trust that they can get the job done. You're not going to be upsold. They're going to tell you exactly what's wrong, and they're not going to try to sell you something you don't need. It's really that simple. Trust and quality of service is what you get from Classic Air Care. Now, look, there are a lot of April specials, and you can check them out at classicaircare.com, but this one's the most important. A $79 AC tune-up is the most important one of the year. No one wants to lose that AC in the St. Louis heat, and you know it's coming. So make sure that you get online, book an appointment at Classic Air Care, and for just $79, you get the tune-up. It's no different than a healthy oil change for your car. It's that simple. Make sure that one of the most important pieces of equipment in your house is running smoothly, it's safe, and it's ready to go as the heat turns. It's Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The St. Louis Blues will be back in action tonight as they visit the LA Kings. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 8 o'clock with Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. And the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, joins us next here on BK and Ferrario. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Blues and Kings tonight. Curbs and Joey with puck drop at 8. I've got the First Community Credit Union pregame starting at 7 right here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. And out in L.A. now, the Blues hitting the ice for their morning skate. So we head to the Callier and Thompson hotline to welcome in the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Curbs, perfect time to be in L.A. How are you, sir?
Alex, I'm good. Watching the guys warm up here, and mathematically, it's not a must-win game, but let's face it, for all intents and purposes, as Roger Hacker said, practically it is a must-win game.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And honestly, after the regulation loss against the Sharks on Monday, Curbs, it kind of feels like every game is a must-win right now. Again, just fun with numbers. I felt like 88 was a number you wanted to get to have a real shot at making the playoffs. And with 18 points in front of you, you really need to find a way to pick up 15 and those 18 the rest of the way.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't delve too much into the what number you think you have to get to make the playoffs. Because let's face it, this year in the West, it's a lot lower. than what it's typically been. But I do know this. You're 3 behind Los Angeles. You're 4 behind the Nashville Predators. A victory tonight moves you to 2 behind Nashville and 1 behind L.A. And why is that important to give you a chance? Well, for the Kings, they play Nashville here in L.A. tomorrow night, and then they play them again 2 games later. There's two of the next 3 games for the L.A. Kings are against Nashville out here in L.A. So if you were the St. Louis Blues and you win tonight and you win in Anaheim on Friday, no matter what, the closest you're going to be to a playoff spot is 3 points. Versus had you won in San Jose, this would have had you in a playoff spot if you could win tonight. So there's a lot. I know there's a lot of ifs and buts or beer and nuts, but the reality of it is that that was a massive loss. Having pulled yourself back into it, that puts a lot more pressure on you now. So yeah, this one really becomes a must-win because you don't want to falling 5 behind Los Angeles and staying 4 behind Nashville, with those 2 teams having 2 games head-to-head, it pretty much means the end of that playoff race.
Curbs, do you think we'd be having a different tone going into this one if they lost an overtime or a shootout to the Sharks rather than regulation?
Yeah. Oh, I think because there's still a point now. You're talking about instead of coming into a game being 1 behind L.A., you'd be tied, right? And so you still have, you still have a game in hand on Nashville. So you still have opportunity there. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that is a key. We look back at it again, and I think we could ask anybody certain games, but, when you're looking at 5 games where you gave up a goal inside the final 70 seconds and you lost 4 of those in regulation, right there's a playoff spot. And that doesn't include the Detroit game or the Nashville game where you had 4-goal leads. So it gives you some real perspective on where this team really is and kind of exactly where they are. Whereas in the standings, you look like you're on the outside, but you're some bounces and a couple of smart plays away from being right there in the thick of it.
And Kerber's one of the guys that helped get the Blues back into this playoff race to where we're having this conversation is Jimmy Snuggerud. And he was just named the NHL Rookie of the Month for the month of March. First Blue skater since Vladimir Tarasenko to get that honor. What have you seen from Jimmy Snuggerud in the month of March? And then what do you think is next in his game to kind of take that next step as he starts to mature as a St. Louis Blue?
Tanner, I think it's even been since, before the month of March, whenever he came back. And look, I did ask him if that injury, that he had that brief surgery on there. I did ask him if that impacted his game. He said, no, it really didn't. But he's just been different. He talked about his, what Braden Shen and even somebody like Jake Neighbors done just about him becoming the player that he's supposed to be, which is shoot the puck, And in that scenario, he's just been shooting it a ton more. And I talked to Alex Steen about it when the team was in Vancouver, and he says, look at his body language. Like when he shoots it, he intends to score. And even at one tough angle, you look at him and he's like, he thinks he's going to score every time he shoots it. So I think it's just a continued growth in a mental attitude, feeling comfortable of how to get through. And then his natural skills coming out. But yeah, it's been fun to watch, and that's a terrific honor for him. He had a great month of March and is one of the big reasons the Blues are in the spot that they are in.
Well, and it's been a great year for the rookies, Curbs. I saw this. The Blues have 34 goals from their rookies, which is 3rd most in the NHL behind Montreal and the Islanders. They've got 79 points from their rookies, which is 4th most in the NHL. When you think of Lindstein and Stenberg and Dvorsky on top of Jimmy Snuggerud, who's got a bulk of those points and goals, I mean, that's the direction that at least pushes this team faster towards the spot they want to be in, rather than if these guys weren't playing at the NHL level.
Yeah, you know what, Joe and I were just talking a lot about this. I mean, look, if the Blues are where they kind of really thought they'd be in the standings coming in, there's probably some of these younger guys and these rookies are not getting the looks that they're getting right now, because you wouldn't have made the moves you made, and you might have even been adding some pieces. The reality of it is they are, though, and these guys are getting the looks. Now, when they're getting the looks, they're looking pretty good. I felt like that Dvorsky line was actually one of the ones that helped kind of turn that tide in that San Jose game. I thought that was a positive. I talking to Colton Parayko, he's glowing about what he's seen from Theo Lindstein. And, and what's happening there. We just talked about Snuggerud, and Stenberg, is still just playing very solid, smart hockey there. So the youth for the Blues, the Blues' future is really good. Like I'm looking at the San Jose Sharks who we just played. They haven't made the playoffs since 2019. They've had first overall picks, third overall picks, that kind of. The LA Kings have had second overall picks. Now, yeah, they did make the playoffs the last couple of years. Struggling this year. They just had a coaching change, obviously. But I look at where the St. Louis Blues are, guys, and from a standing standpoint, they're right there with these teams that have gone through these long kind of competitive droughts for a while. So parking the playoff chase and all that aside, I do think there is a lot of positivity, when it comes to what the future of this team looks like. And that's what Jim Montgomery is working on right now.
Kerbs, he's not a rookie, but you mentioned that Dvorsky line, and this guy I'm about to ask you about was on it, and that is Berggren. Berggren, when he was picked up, I thought, to be honest with you, was just a guy of, hey, they need bodies at the time, so he's going to be here, fill in, and then we'll go from there. I've really liked his game. Do you think he can play? He is playing his way into the conversation as being a part of this team moving forward?
I don't think he is playing his way in. I think he has played his way in. You look at his age, he's 25. You look at the attitude, you look at everything about it. And Tanner, what I was told before that, yes, they need a bodies because of the injuries, but I don't think they were just going to claim any body. And I was told that he was somebody they actually had on their radar for a year or two as someone to keep an eye on. So when he became available, it was really a low-risk, high-reward chance here. And I think Berggren has taken full advantage of it. It was hard for him to get into that Detroit lineup. They were in playoff spots at the time. They were pretty healthy. The Blues had a hole. And if you look at it, you're seeing Berggren playing a ton right now in games that matter versus even some guys that have been there for a little bit. So, yeah, he's a restricted free agent. All the Blues have to do to hold his rights is to qualify him. And I'd be completely shocked if they did not. So I think he has played his way right into the mix and fits that mold that they're looking for right now.
Kerb's final one I wanted to ask you about, and we're talking with Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues here on the Calgary and Thompson hotline. I know it's just noise, but we've heard a lot more over the last couple of days since Toronto fired Brad Treliving about the potential of Doug Armstrong being courted by the Maple Leafs. From your understanding, where do you believe things are at in terms of Doug Armstrong's role with the Blues beyond this season?
Okay, let me preface this by simply saying I have not talked to anybody and I have no knowledge of any situation, whether or not Toronto is asked to talk to Doug or any of that stuff. All I do know is the facts. And the facts are that Doug Armstrong is under contract to the Blues for the next 3 years. Next season would be his first season solely as president of hockey operations, and Alexander Steen is general manager. So I don't have any inside knowledge on any of that in terms of what's going on. Look, anytime you've heard a general manager's name, popping up, obviously Doug's going to be in part of that discussion, when people are speculating, because he has been one of the most competitive, and aggressive general managers in the game. Just hit the 1,600 game mark as a general manager in the National Hockey League. And he's, the most experienced one in the game at the moment there, right there with Ken Holland. So, I think you're going to see a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of smoke right now. I really don't know whether or not there's actual fire there. I'd be surprised if there is a little bit at this point. But the facts of, as a lawyer would say, the facts of the matter are this, and that is that he's under contract for the next 3 years. It's a scenario that he, went to Tom Stillman with a succession plan there. So we'll see how that plays out. But right now, I haven't heard of anything that's actually factual.
Real quick, Kerb, some housekeeping. I know Broberg got injured on that last shot of the game against San Jose. Does it look like he's good for tonight? And any insight into the goaltending that starts this evening?
Yeah, it says Jordan Binnington has been in the starter's net here at practice. As you guys can hear all the sticks and pucks flying around. I was just focused on the line rushes. It looks like the forward lines are going to be the same. So it looks to me like the same exact lineup, actually, for the Blues here. Tucker was skating out there with Kessel. So to me, it's good to see Tucker back out there for another practice again. They did not practice yesterday, but I believe it's going to be Hall with Fowler. So looks like the same lineup, except Jordan Binnington going in net for this game. And somehow with that goalie rotation, there's a somewhat fitting aspect of this when we were talking about this basically being a must-win game, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's the duo, right? It's the duo that you see put in this position, and they continue to find ways to get both of them the starts throughout the rest of the season.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, look, you could have made a heck of a statement if it was going to be Hofer starting this one tonight, but these guys are going, and you still need wins. They both have been playing well, so look. Man, they're still in it now, but that loss in San Jose, especially in regulation, really was a big one. Hopefully they come back, they rebound tonight, and keep it interesting for the rest of this road trip.
Looking forward to it. Curbs and Joey will have puck drop at 8. Pregame begins at 7 here on 101 ESPN. Curbs, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy skating. We'll talk tonight.
All right, Alex. Thanks. Have a great day, guys.
There you go. Voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, with us here on the Collier and Thompson hotline. And if you missed what he said there, Bennington gets the start, which is something you and I were talking about, wondering kind of which way they'd go with this, which, in my opinion, kind of sets this up. Bennington gets this one. You'd see Hofer probably start on Friday unless Bennington posts a really good game. And then you'll see kind of who has been playing well in the previous two before you take on the Colorado Avalanche. My gut would tell me you get Joel Hofer in that one, and then maybe Jordan Bennington gets the start on Tuesday. I think it's going to be a 50-50 split the rest of the way, which kind of what you need in the NHL these days. And also great news that Broberg's playing. The way he fell, we didn't see him on the television because the game ended, but the way he fell was like, oh, geez, just took it off the ankle. There's no way that guy's going to be able to play the next game. So good news that he's going to be available as they, according to Curbs, keeping the lines the entire way the same against the Kings tonight. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, it's the question everyone keeps asking. How long are the Cardinals going to continue to keep Mason Winn in the cleanup spot? That coming up in 15. Junk Drawer next here on 101 ESPN. Along with Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get to Mason Winn in the 4-hole coming up in about 5 minutes. But now we dive into the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario. I think I'm going to make a statement that a lot of people make all the time. I hate the dentist. And it's
what's weird? I don't
really.
I don't have a hatred towards
it's not anything about the dentist. Like, I take good care of my teeth. I brush them twice a day. I floss at night. Like, I do all the stuff you're supposed to. But the anxiety built up to the dentist visit, I don't like. Because, like, you know how BK's afraid of flights and, like, where the flight's going to... I'm more worried about people talking bad about my mouth behind closed doors. Like, because every time I go in, like, full disclosure, TMI, whatever you want to call it, I build up a lot of plaque on my teeth. Even when I brush twice a day, like, plaque builds up really well for me.
You should brush 3 times a day.
Well, maybe I should. So every time I go to the dentist, the lady that works on my mouth, the first thing she says is, "Oh." And I'm like,
wow, what a start to the trip to the dentist.
It's like, I don't want to start this
way. It's like
way.
a doctor opened your chart and went, oh.
Right. And then be like, no, you're fine. She's just like, and then you're there and you're like, you like have to like justify, like, I brush my teeth twice a day, every day, and I don't know what's going on. And so then they're scrubbing in your mouth and it's like, I hate going to it, man.
The part I hate about the dentist is look, I'm open to having, like, talking with people, right? Like, I'm okay with having a conversation with my dentist if they want to.
I know where you're going to go with this.
I'm okay, like, when I get my hair cut, if they want to talk, I'm okay to talk. If they don't want to talk, I'm okay not to talk, you know? What I can't stand the dentist being like, so, what do you do for a living? And then, like, as you start to talk, they shove the thing in your mouth and start to, like, scrape away.
Right.
Don't ask me a question if we're going to put something in my mouth.
Yeah, I don't need small talk at the dentist. I need you to get through this very fast so I can leave.
And, like, if we're waiting, like, you know, how really the dentist shows up for, like, the quick, yep, you're good, and then walks out, and you deal with their kind of, like, sidekicks for most of the time you're there. Like, if we need to talk while we're waiting for the dentist to come, I'm okay with that. Again, just don't ask me questions while you're putting stuff in. And then, like my dentist last time I was there said, like, could you open wider? You're asking me to talk while you're shoving a tool in my mouth.
Also, I don't know how to open wider. Like, there's only one way to open my mouth. Like, it's not like I can just, yeah, sure, I was only going about 25%. But the other one with it, too, is throughout the whole experience, you know, when they're cleaning your teeth and they're scraping off the stuff and they're kind of washing it with that, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like the heavy, like, wash thing. You try and, like, act tough the whole time. To where they're like, oh, let me know if it's hurting you at all. And it's like, I don't want to say it because I just want to get in and out. So you just sit through the whole thing.
So you're secretly in pain?
Oh, yeah, the whole time I'm in pain. They're like scraping your gums, and it's like, this is awful. And the only reason I bring this up is because I got a dentist appointment today at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, and you're weirdly brushing your teeth in the bathroom.
That was the other thing. Like, you have this, like, weird panic of, I gotta go brush my teeth, and so you like overdo it before you go in, and it doesn't even make a difference. But like, I had to I always like to go to the dentist in the morning because it's the first thing I do, get it out of the way. I don't have breakfast or anything, and then I can go about my day. I had breakfast this morning, so I'm like, well, I gotta brush my teeth before I go. I'm going right after the show, so I go into the bathroom awkwardly, and I'm like water picking my mouth, and I'm washing it, and I'm like, God, I hope nobody walks in the middle of this.
I gotta say, you know, BK's told the story how he's got the Invisalign. And I can say this because he's not here, and I know there's no chance in hell he's listening.
True.
Just backstory, when we do the Rebel Report, right? I'm in the office after our show on Thursdays, which we'll be recording a Rebel Report tomorrow. So BK eats lunch in the office while I'm finishing up the podcasting for our show. Just hearing him click out that Invisalign gives me the heebie-jeebies. I know he's got to do it, but man, every time I hear it, just makes me just shake over here.
Mine's the worst too, because I have that implant from the tumor that I had in my mouth that they had to remove, and so the implant's in there, and so like I have to use this water pick to like get underneath, and God, it hurts so bad. I don't like the dentist, and I wish it was a lot of an easier process. But anyway, I'll be there at 2 o'clock today.
America.
Yeah, most of America despises this. Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, how long are we going to continue to have these conversations about Winn in the cleanup spot? That's next here on 101 ESPN. Along with Tanner Hendricks, I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals expected to start in about 10 minutes. The game delayed, of course, because of the rain this morning. So
baseball.
A 1:15 first pitch for you with Matthew Liberatore on the mound against the Mets. And in that game, Mason Winn is hitting in the cleanup spot. And I know a lot of Cardinals fans are like, why does he keep hitting there? Last night went 0 for 4. He's right now 3 for 21 so far this season in terms of hitting in the cleanup spot. And I think a lot of frustration is around why they keep doing this. How long are you going to keep putting him out there? He's not a prototypical cleanup hitter. So before T-Bone and I discuss this, I did want to play this piece of audio. I'll credit it to the Gas House gang over on KMOX. They had Ollie Marmol on, and Ollie was asked about Mason Winn in that spot and how long they continue to put him there. So take a listen to the Cardinals manager.
Not too quickly. The reasons we did it, I'd like to give it time. And it's more of having someone there that can make some contact, not put in Gorman in a situation where he's fourth. And when you bring in a lefty, whether you do it at Vic in the 9 or you do it at JJ in the 1, right? If you're the opposition and you bring in the lefty there and you have the 3-batter minimum, then when I pinch hit for Gorman in the 4, then they have the upper hand of bringing the righty in there as well. So you never get the upper hand of that matchup. If he's there. So you can just let it ride and let all the lefties face lefties, and that's fine. But in order to buy them some right-handed arms coming at them, I think you try to split them up. So there's different ways of thinking about it. I don't think we have to react to it too quickly because the options of what you would do otherwise aren't very clear. If something was screaming at us, then sure. But at the moment, I think we can ride this out and just see how it plays out for a little bit.
I understand the frustration from Cardinals fans because Mason Winn is not a cleanup hitter, right? Like, for as long as I can remember, a cleanup hitter has been Scott Rowland, Matt Holliday. They've had incredible Nolan Arenado.
Well, which version?
The early portion of it, yeah. Okay. We all remember what the last couple of years have been like with Nolan Arenado in that spot. But I have no problem with this. This is where you're at. Like, fine. If you want to put Ivan Herrera in the cleanup spot, then move him to that. Then you're going to put Mason Winn in the 2-hole. And guess what you're going to be complaining about? Mason Winn shouldn't be a 2-hole hitter. He's not a best hitter on your team where most teams play their best hitter in the lineup. It's because you don't have that guy. You have 3 players right now that are viewed as the best players, and you want them to get the most at-bats possible. You're not moving Walker up. You're not moving Gorman up. There's no reason to move Church or Urias or Scott or Pajes up. This is your team. You're in a rebuild. Until Joshua Baez is ready to be a major leaguer, you're stuck with this. And you could be upset about it all you want, but this is what a rebuild looks like. And honestly, I like the fact that they are putting this guy in a position and letting him figure it out. If you want to be an impact bat in the middle of the lineup or even at the top of the lineup, go prove it. Because next year, 2 years, when you finally find that 4-hole hitter or you've got multiple options that can hit in the 3 spot, hit in the 4 spot, hit in the 2 spot, and Mason Winn wants that, then you look back and say, hey, man, we tried it. It didn't work. You're a better suited 6-7-hole hitter for us. Yes, I did that one on purpose, T-Bone. You're a better suited 6-7-hole hitter for this Cardinals team, and that's fine. You're supposed to be in that spot. So I have no problem with this. The people that are saying, get him out of there. Who do you want in that spot? Because any person you put there, it's not going to look pretty.
Yeah, I would push back on that a little bit. I prefer Herrera there in the 4 spot. I would prefer to hit Winn in the 2. Now, I say that acknowledging that there's a hole somewhere, right? It's a matter of where you're going to create that hole. And what Ollie was saying about trying to create that lane or avoid that lane for lefties to where you have to pinch it for Gorman. If you hit Gorman in the cleanup spot, for example, that's fair. I like that one. I totally get. And that's why, like, I would just swap Herrera and Winn. And he mentioned, I don't think it was in that clip, but it was earlier on the Gas House gang on KMOX. He had mentioned, we like forcing a lefty to face Herrera, which I totally get because that is one thing you can do if you go into that 9 spot. You go lefty versus Scott, Wetherholt, Herrera, and then you want him for Burleson. But Winn splits in his career are better against lefties. And I just think Winn would profile better in that 2 spot than he would as a cleanup hitter where you're looking to do damage. But either way, you're going to come up to a spot where in this order you look at it and go, there's just not somebody that profiles in the correct spot. Because if you keep Winn at the cleanup hitter, he's not a cleanup hitter. You're 100% right. On a contending team, he's hitting anywhere between 6 through 9 in a batting order.
Right.
You look at the 2-hole spot, that analytics will tell you that's where you're supposed to hit your best hitter. That's why the Cardinals would always hit Paul Goldschmidt for the most part in the 2 spot. It's why when Pujols would go up against lefties, where would he hit in 2022? He would hit in the 2 spot when he started to get going again. But if you do that for Mason Winn's not your best hitter. Herrera's actually your best hitter, so he actually is kind of profiled in the correct spot. So because you're in a rebuild, it's not the end of the world. I would prefer to hit Herrera in the cleanup spot and put Winn at 2. But I'm okay with watching Winn hit cleanup just because I know there's not a better answer for one of those spots.
Right. Well, and the problem with that is, like, you're not best utilizing JJ Wetherholt. Like, if this guy is an on-base machine and Mason Winn's a guy that just runs into outs, whether they're pop flies or they're grounders, you're talking about eliminating any chance of scoring runs.
See, I'm more concerned that with the current construction of the lineup, you limit Burley. Because, I mean, look at last night's game, for example, and we'll see if it plays out today with Freddie Peralta. That first inning, I believe it's Wetherholt's on first base in the first inning last night. They clearly pitch around Alec Burleson, right? They have no fear of going after Burley because they would rather face Mason Winn. And then you look later on in the game, I think it was the 5th or 6th inning. There's 2 outs and a runner at first base. I think it's Herrera at first base. And I know it goes to a full count. Senka was clearly pitching around Alec Burleson. He was nibbling at the corners, and eventually Burley took his walk. My fear is not so much as if Burley's going to remain patient at the plate, because I think he showed last night he's willing to stay patient. I just fear he's not going to get anything to hit, and you're not going to see him do the damage that you need him to do out of that 3 spot. So that would be my concern, is with Winn in the cleanup spot, there's no protection behind Burley. Someone could counter that, though, and say, like, okay, well, who's the protection behind Herrera if he hits cleanup?
And that's why I look at the bottom of the 3rd last night, where Scott doubles to lead things off. Wetherholt singles. You got guys at 2nd and 3rd because of Scott's speed. Mason Winn steps up to the plate. That might be an automatic out, and then the inning's looking a little different, to where now you're looking at Ivan Herrera, who doubles there because he's your best hitter, and you have the chance to score the runs. Like, the reason I like 1 through 3 right now is because every time they step to the plate, you have a chance to take a 1-run or a 2-run lead, depending on where the game is at. And I just think right now with Mason Winn, because it's so up and down, it does feel as if you might kill any momentum in an inning right there. But you're absolutely right. Like, you've got no protection with Burleson. But regardless, once you get beyond Burleson, things drop off significantly. And that's where you're at right now. If you put Herrera there, then it drops off even more significantly after. But you also have that spot at the top of the lineup where things can get pretty devastating.
And this is why I don't know if I want to say it's, like, important, because they're not trying to win this year. But this is why, like, Gorman and Walker are the keys to what the offense can ultimately become in 2026. Because if those guys can get back to what they were, like Gorman in 2023, when he had that very good rookie campaign, and Jordan Walker when he had his good campaign in 2023, now you start to lengthen out that lineup, right? Because my argument would be, even if Gorman doesn't end up becoming that guy again, but he shows power and say hits like 200, but he's showing 25 to 30 home run power, the fear behind Herrera, the protection, quote unquote, behind Herrera, is the fear of Gorman connecting with one of these pitches and putting up a crooked number on the scoreboard. So that's why Gorman and Walker are the guys that truly kind of define what this offense's ceiling is going to be in 2026. Because if those guys don't hit, you're right. No matter what, there's not going to be any protection behind whether it's Burley in the 3 spot or Herrera if he ends up being slid back to that 4 spot. So you've got 4, 5, 6 becoming a big question mark. If Gorman and Walker start to hit, 1, you could eventually move Walker to the cleanup spot if you want and bump Winn out of it if he starts to hit. And 2, it just provides more length into this lineup for this season.
Yeah, somebody brought up Wetherholt batting 2nd and Winn batting 1st. I think I'd rather have Wetherholt batting 1st. I mean, to your point, T-Bone, in Winn's career, he's got 250 at-bats in the 2-hole, and he's got a 324 on-base percentage, 412 slug, and 736 OPS. That's not great, but the only other spot that he's been better at in terms of at-bats is the 8-hole. And right now, you don't have anything if you want to justify putting him in the 8-hole.
Yeah, well, I don't really look at his numbers based on where he hits in the order. It's just more of what he is overall and what he profiles as. I do wonder if a month into the season, because he didn't say they're never going to change the lineup. He said they'll kind of readjust. I wonder if in a month into the season we do see Wetherholt kind of slide back to 2. Because if that's where you hit your best hitter, I mean, like, Would you agree that right now Wetherholt almost looks like their best hitter through
Without
5
question.
games?
I think he and Burleson are right there together.
Yeah, so like if that's the case and Wetherholt ends up being what Derek had told us, which is, hey, he looks like the Cardinals' best hitter, I could see where maybe they decide, you know what, this lineup probably looks a little better if we go Winn at 1, Wetherholt 2, Herrera 3, Burley 4.
Yeah.
Maybe that looks a little. That might be something they experiment with, but again, that all depends on what Wetherholt looks like as Major League Baseball starts to adjust to him as we get through the month of April.
Yep. Well, so we'll see as it continues to move forward. But basically, break it all down. Stop worrying about him in the 4-hole. It's going to be there for at least the month of April.
You know what's going to happen?
He's going to be moved out of it.
Oh, no, he's going to homer today.
That
Every time I say Winn's in the wrong spot in the batting order, he like goes off. Last year or 2 years ago, he's not a 2-hole hitter. Remember, I went on the whole rant. He's like, I don't care about it. And I was like, no, it matters. And then he hit 2 home runs in Cincy.
He had a great game that one, and that's what we call the TKO.
Yeah. You know, screw it. I'm putting a bet in on Winn.
I would do it right now. Over on the Underdog app. Underdog app is where T-Bone will do it. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we talked with Kerbs a little bit ago about a couple of the Blues players. Specifically, T-Bone asked him about Berggren. Brings up the question I was asking earlier today. Who fits into the Blues build moving forward? So we'll talk that. But coming up next, some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. Along with Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario as we dive into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario. T-Bone, let's start with your LA Rams. Of course.
What's Sean up to?
Well, Sean and the team are out there talking about trading Davante Adams. He acknowledged that the team has explored the possibility of trading wide receiver, but ultimately decided it wasn't what was best for the team. Let's just call it what it is. We tried to get A.J. Brown. We couldn't get A.J. Brown, and we said, we'll stick with what we've got.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, right? Like, you don't look to trade Davante Adams on that team that's trying to win now unless you got a better replacement for Davante Adams.
Yeah. Now, like, what I don't understand, because I agree with you, that was my read on the situation was, hey, we don't really believe Davante's going to be able to do this again, repeat what he did this year, and he dealt with a significant hamstring injury last year. So we don't really want to bet on this again as our number 2 wide receiver. And we've heard A.J. Brown's available, so let's call about it. And there were reports about that earlier in the offseason. The thing I don't understand, and BK and I were talking about this in the office yesterday, why are they publicly saying this, right? They claim they've talked to Davante about it. Is this them, like, still hoping A.J. Brown's asking price comes down? And then they, like, are getting it out there for more people of, hey, if we did acquire A.J. Brown, guess who is available? It would be Davante Adams. I get the idea of wanting to trade him because I agree. I'm not sure he's going to do what he did last year. Mm-hmm. That's why I think they're probably drafting a receiver with that 12th overall pick that they have.
Makes sense.
I just don't understand why they're publicly confirming it. It's one of those things that maybe it's not a big deal, but we never see teams publicly. Even the Eagles right now are basically like, well, A.J. Brown's in an Eagles jersey, so he's still going to be an Eagle. Okay.
Motivation is what they're trying for. They want Davante to be motivated this year. The threat of a trade.
Motivation.
Also, that doesn't work in the NFL. When you threaten trade, players are like, yeah, cool, that's fine, just trade me. So, yeah, I'm with you. It makes zero sense, but the more I question the Rams, the more they find ways to continue to make significant moves. Another piece of news that came out yesterday was, or 2 days ago, I think this was, because we were going to get to it yesterday and we didn't get to NFL quick hitters. The Hard Knocks team that was announced for this summer.
Who we got? Who we watching in training camp?
Well, I shouldn't say who do you think it is. You know who it is. I
know who it is. You want me to play dumb and guess?
Yeah, go play dumb.
Could it be the Jets?
No, it's the Seattle Seahawks.
What?
Who would have thought? This is weird, right?
I don't care.
I mean, I don't care either, but...
why do I want to watch what a bunch of the scrubs are going to do at Hard Knocks and then get cut?
What's the interest of watching a team that has just won the Super Bowl go through training camp and the offseason?
I guess, like, right now, I don't know who their starting running back is, so that's intriguing.
You don't, though, isn't it? I mean,
he's recovering from an injury.
Oh,
Charbonnet.
I guess that's fair. So, like, the one piece of information, I'm going to watch one episode and see what led to the decision to move on from Kenneth Walker.
If they draft a running back, I'm going to know exactly who it is. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Good for the Seahawks, I guess. You get to be on Hard Knocks. I don't care about Hard Knocks anymore.
I don't either. I think if you get an interesting team, it's fun to watch.
But I just think it's lost its luster, right? It's been something that's been going on for, a decade at this point?
Yeah.
Like, the most intriguing one was the one that followed the team in season, where they followed the Giants in season.
Yeah, that one was good.
Sorry, during the offseason.
When Saquon.
And then the Giants were like, man, this makes our GM look like an idiot. Boy. We can't have cameras in here during the offseason. We're going to expose all the guys that suck at running an organization.
Where they really screwed up is they should have flipped what next summer's is. The New England Patriots next summer. Like, I don't know what this season's going to look like for the Patriots, but, like, I think what would have been more interesting was watching the Patriots offseason of losing in the Super Bowl, dealing with all of the Stephon Diggs stuff, and then addressing their team to try and build a Super Bowl contender. Nobody wants to see what a Super Bowl champion team is going to do in the offseason. So that's where I think they screwed it up.
If you could pick anybody, and I know there's rules on, like, they can only be on once, however many times it is.
Yeah.
Who would you want? Because I think if you do care about this and if you do want intrigue, to me, you almost have to go with an organization that's either A, grooming a new quarterback, or B, has a new coach who's going to, like, groom a new quarterback. Like, that's why the Bears we would talk about as exciting with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders would be mine.
That's who I was thinking.
Yeah.
Them or the Titans. I think Robert Saleh with the Titans, year 2 with Cam Ward. Sounds like they're probably going to draft Jeremiah Love with the number 4 overall selection. Yeah. like they would be intriguing. Again, like if you took out all the rules, they would probably be my team that I would select.
I mean, the rate with Max Crosby stuff that went down, Mendoza being drafted, the roster that they have, trying to take their next steps, the new coach in place. Like, yeah, that's the team that you'd go with. I think Minnesota's interesting with Kyler. That would be a fun one.
Baltimore would be fun.
Baltimore
moved on from Harbaugh.
Yeah, Baltimore would be very interesting. Pittsburgh moving on from Tomlin, what that looks like.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
You don't want to watch more Mike McCarthy? Like,
I don't want to watch McCarthy and hear about how great a teammate Aaron Rodgers is. They might be 32nd on my list.
Yeah, so I think those are the better options if you were to pick a different one with this. So next one up, T-Bone, and I'll let you do this because I didn't get a chance to read this piece. What did Aaron Glenn say about his quarterback?
Well, Aaron Glenn, of course, at the meetings here over the last couple of days.
Because, Aaron Glenn running the Jets right now.
He was asked a question about Geno Smith, who, of course, they acquired, and looks like he's going to be their starting quarterback, and said, quote, he's the guy that's going to lead us to the promised land.
Promised land meaning the number 1 overall pick. Right?
I'm not sure that's what he was referencing.
Oh, okay.
But
that's the only promised land Geno Smith has found his way towards.
I think we could have came up with a better quote when asked about Geno.
I think that is a scripted quote that was handed to him from Woody Johnson that said, this is how you will address the quarterback scenario. And he said, yes, sir, because I want to keep my job.
Well, I hate to tell him, but he might be fired at the end of the year.
Very true. Probably should have went a different direction on that one.
Ideally, I guess like the promised land is what you're saying, where you play for the number 1 overall pick, because that's probably where you're going.
And then you cut the coach and you go out there and you find a different person to take care of the team.
I think we could have answered the question better.
I think there's only one way to answer the question about Geno Smith. We were bad last year. We hope we're better this season, and Geno Smith's our guy.
Gives us competence at the quarterback position that we didn't have last year. Like, you can take your shot at Fields while not saying he's the guy that gets us to where we want to go.
Yeah, somebody got a little over-aggressive there when he was talking about his team. Final one I wanted to ask you about, and I think we talked about this before, but it sounds as if NFL is getting rid of the Monday Night Football doubleheaders, and they're turning attention over to the Thanksgiving Eve game. I don't know how you feel. We've talked about this before to where sometimes it feels like there's a little football fatigue to where it's like Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, and then you get Monday with doubleheaders. I like doubleheaders on Monday Night Football because it's nice to just have the full slate. I hate having to start a game at 9 o'clock on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I don't really want the pre-Thanksgiving game. We've talked about that.
Yeah, that one's too much.
We don't need it.
Can't we just add the game to Sunday and keep it the full slate with more of them?
I don't need like 5 different days where I need to watch the NFL as much as I love the NFL. I'm cool with getting rid of the doubleheader for Monday Night Football. I like having one showcase game, and I'm with you. I don't like when there's the 2 games going on Monday Night Football where you're showcasing, where you got to try and watch them both. And then add on top of it just the fact of the late kickoffs for some of those games, I'm not a fan of. I get it. That probably means we're probably going to have some sucky Monday Night Football games like we've seen in the past, where you could have like the 3-10 G-men taking on the 2-12 Raiders.
Hey, well, we get the Jets with Aaron
I'm okay
Geno
with
Smith.
I just need the one game on my Monday night.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't like the doubleheader. Let's be honest. ESPN only had one good crew that they could send to do games. And that was Buck and Aikman. I'm fine if they're getting rid of this Monday Night Football doubleheader.
I think you just keep the premier one and you move on from it and just place in that other crap game on a Sunday to where you can just watch it on Red Zone or whatever you need to do. So those are our NFL quick hitters. Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Cardinals underway in the bottom of the first. Matthew Liberatore, a clean first inning. Right now, 1 out in the bottom of the first. We'll hit the rewind coming up in 15, but coming up next, when you look at the Blues and how they're building, are you focused in these final 9 games in terms of who's going to be a part of this build continuing forward? Because that's kind of where I'm at, and I'll explain next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals are underway as they are taking on the New York Mets. The rubber match of their series today. They are tied at 0 going to the top of the second inning. Matthew Liberatore's getting the start for the Cardinals today, and Freddie Peralta is on the mound for the New York Mets. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. Blues will be back in action tonight as well as they visit the LA Kings. We'll have pregame coverage tonight starting at 7 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 8 o'clock with Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. The Sports Update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Real quick, we didn't even address this earlier. April 1st, April Fool's Day. I hate today because people are trying to catch you on every little thing. I know, T-Bone, you got caught earlier today. I told you I have like an alarm set on my phone because one of my closest friends always finds a way to get me at some point. I just saw this post that almost got me. It's a movie thing that I follow. It's that Timothy Chalamet is going to be the next Terminator in James Cameron's film.
That sounds good.
And I looked at it and I go, Timothy Chalamet is Schwarzenegger's replacement of the Terminator? What? It's an April Fool's joke. Be careful out there, T-Bone. What's not an April Fool's joke is the Blues back in action tonight. Still 4 points out of a playoff spot. 2 points would be massive tonight because it puts you 1 point behind the Kings and 2 points out of that final wild card spot held by Nashville. And I think that's what a lot of people are going to be focusing on the rest of the way, or at least until they're officially eliminated from it. But you know, T-Bone, you asked me in the office during our show prep, what are you keeping an eye on in these final 9 games? And I think the chalk answer is, well, I'm watching all these rookies play. I'm actually kind of watching to see who fits into the build that they're going to be going into, because we all know by now that this is going to be an uncertain offseason of what they're going to do and who moves on, where, and if they make significant trades. But I just read this quote from Jim Montgomery, who spoke with the media a little bit ago before the Kings game. They're not making any changes to the lineup, which means Druin, Walker, Kessel, and Tucker are all going to be healthy scratches, although Tucker's still injured, not playing as well as Oscar Sundqvist. He said the lineup is the same. I've talked to the 5 guys that haven't played. I told them to keep being great teammates. They're working hard, staying in shape. They have to for when we call upon them. You know we're going to call upon them sooner rather than later. If we don't have success again tonight, there are going to be changes. I look at the lineup that they have in place. Holloway, Thomas, Snuggerud, Neighbors, Booch, Kyrou, Stenberg, Dvorsky, Berggren, Toropchenko, Finley, Suter. And then the defense stays the same. Justin Hall in place of Tucker or Kessel. I look at that lineup and I say, who comes out of that going into next season? Like, I think when I try and focus on how they're building this, that Holloway line, I would imagine, stays the same. Unless they find a taker for Booch or Kyrou, those guys are going to be here. Stenberg, Dvorsky, and Berggren are going to be here. I mean, you heard Curbs tell Tanner earlier, like, Berggren's already played his way into this team's future. Suter's an incredible player, and Finley and Toropchenko have been great. Like, Oscar Sundqvist isn't finding ways to get into this lineup. So I am fascinated to see who plays themselves out of St. Louis the rest of the way. You know, do they readdress this Kyrou conversation? You know, does an Otto Stenberg look more like a guy that maybe needs a little bit more fine-tuning in the American Hockey League? Is Berggren just a 13th forward? Does Toropchenko or Finley remain in that 4th line spot? Like, to me, I think guys like Kessel and Tucker and Hull might be out of a job for the Blues if they're building this, because Juracek's going to be on this roster next year. Binnington, if he plays well, are going to keep these guys. Like, to me, it's not so much what these younger guys are doing as it's more of who plays into the spot that says, yeah, you can't remove him from this lineup when we make changes this offseason.
Yeah, I just feel like there's not a lot that's going to be learned over the next 9 games for a lot of these guys, because I think you already know that they're going to be a part of the future. Like, the only one that I would really circle as, like, he still has something to play with, where I would maybe push a little bit back on Curbs, but not really, would be Berggren.
Yeah.
Because, like, if Carbonneau makes his team, he's going to be playing in your top 9. But, like, the reason I say I'm not even sure how much I would really push back is I assume it's just Kyrou that they're trading out the door to bring in Carbonneau to take over that spot. So, like, I don't know that there's much you're going to learn in the forward group. And then, like, defensively, like, whether you do or don't trade Colton Parayko, you have Adam Yurchek here. I think Justin Hull's already proven enough to be the 7th defenseman for next year.
I mean, there's no coincidence that Matt Kessel has not played a whole lot since the trade deadline. Like, they've played a lot of Justin Hull and Tyler Tucker and very little of Matt Kessel.
Yeah, so, like, I think your defense is pretty much set. It just comes down to, like, what do you determine? I think the focal point of the offseason becomes Parayko and Thomas. Do they fit into what you're going to build moving forward? And Parayko's one that I circle because, like, I said this all week. Thomas, you can kind of manipulate your timeline and say, instead of 26, we're going to do 27, and he ends up fitting into what we're building.
Damn, that 1 year.
Parayko, like, he's the one that you can't do that for because he is so much older than Thomas. You know, he is in his 30s. He's the one that, like, if you decide, you know what, we like Justin Hull as kind of that third pair right defenseman, we're okay with giving Yurchek a shot into the top 4. Is it conventional? Is it something that we may look at 40 games in the year and go, man, he looks kind of like Mayu, where he looks kind of out of place early on in the season? Yeah, but if you're kind of rebuilding / retooling again, I'm not sure that really matters for you. So, you know, I think a lot of guys have already kind of played their way into the plans for the St. Louis Blues, and there's not a lot that they can prove over the final 9 games to kind of whether it be push themselves into the conversation of staying as a Blue or pushing themselves out the door because they don't play well.
Well, and see, what's funny about what you said is I look at it to where I think the 2 guys that you're focused on are Kyrou and Buchnevich. I think Kyrou is the number 1 target that the Blues are going to be looking at, saying, I don't know where you fit in to our team. Now, that's his decision, just like it would be Thomas's and Parayko's, but I wonder if that one's more likely in the Blues' eyes of him being willing to accept one. And then, like, I have to put Buchnevich in this conversation. Like, they're using him as the centerman. He's played fine this season. He's got 17 goals. He's not lighting it up the way that you want, but he's not a center, in my opinion, for a team if you're trying to at least be somewhat competitive next year. You probably are going to have Dvorsky in that spot, and if Pius Suter's still on the squad, like, he's the other one. They love Pius Suter because of his versatility, but where does he fit in? Because are you going to use him at the center? Are you going to keep him on the 4th line wing? Like, their decisions, I think, are determined, like you mentioned, with Thomas and Parayko, and I feel like the way that this one's going to end, they've probably leaned more towards, well, maybe we look at keeping these guys unless somebody gives us that Godfather offer we want. I think the focus is more on Kyrou, Buchnevich, Suter, Berggren, and Hull, as those are the 5 spots that we're trying to decide, okay, do you guys have these for next year, or does somebody else in our system, or right now that's healthy scratches, find a way to push themselves into it?
I guess that's fair. I guess where I've fallen victim is I guess I've already decided that the Blues are probably going to try and trade Kyrou.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just feel like this feels like a marriage that's coming to an end, right? And maybe he decides he wants to stay here and then we can have that conversation. But I think right now my expectation is they're going to be doing everything they can to try and move him out the door.
Yeah.
Booch is one to where, like, I guess it's fair. Is he a center or not? They seem to be wanting to go with him as a centerman the rest of the season. We can address that when we get there. But Booch is one of those to where you're kind of stuck with him. Now you got to figure out where do you best kind of suit him up at. Is it as a second line center? Is it a third line center? Is it on the wing? But it's more the kids that have my focus because, like, the older guys, like, one, you're stuck with Booch, in my opinion. Kyrou, I think you've already determined that he's probably out the door. It's more of figuring out, okay, which young guys do we need to create opportunities for? And they've done a pretty good job of that already to this point. It's going to be, okay, what do we do in the offseason so we can create a lane for a Carbonneau? Or what do we need to do in the offseason if we feel we need to do anything in the offseason to create a lane for Adam Yurchek?
Real quick, because I feel like every time that the Blues play the Kings, we kind of come back to this question because of the comp that Doug Armstrong made on them 3 years ago, being in line with the Kings in terms of their quick retool. Now, it has, in my opinion, failed for the Kings because you've been borderline playoff team for the last 2 years. And
always going home in the first round.
Yeah, nothing to show for it. You've lacked the consistent offense. I mean, right now they've scored 195 goals this season. It's the same amount that the Blues have scored in the National Hockey League. Your defense really hasn't taken that next step, and it feels like they've just continued to chase. Do you take any lessons from them, T-Bone, in terms of how the Blues can avoid failing in that sense? Because we talked about this a little bit ago, at least from my perspective. I think the lesson from the Kings is drafting. Like, the only lesson that I've really taken away from the Kings, one is that aggressive trade that they made in terms of moving off of Velarde for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like, you have to make sure you recognize the correct trades. But two, like, I heard Doug Armstrong say this on a podcast, I think it was a week ago or so, to where he was asked about, his strategy at drafts. And he said, I believe, and I've told Steen this, that you fail as a general manager when you pick the player over your scouting director. He said, these guys spend years watching these guys. You go with what they tell you. Like, the Kings, and I don't know what their scouting department direction has been, but like when you look at Quentin Byfield, he has not been success for them. Alex Turcotte, who was drafted in the top 5, has not been success for them. Brandt Clark hasn't taken that next step. Like, that's one of the lessons that I feel like the Blues have done better at than the Kings is having more success with your draft and getting the right guy rather than missing on those swings when you're selecting in the top spots like the Kings have been.
Yeah, for me, and I know someone would push back on this because they brought up Panarin earlier when they acquired Panarin. It's the lack of a star. The lack of a star in his prime, honestly, is what kind of held these teams back. The Kings got to the playoffs, but their ceiling was capped to the first round. And I think what we've seen with the Blues' current core of Thomas and Kyrou and Booch and those guys, and we'll see when they shift the core if this ends up still holding to be the case, they didn't have a star, and it didn't really lift up their ceiling. I mean, you look at what the Blues were at their best in this version of the core, they were a fringe playoff team that required, a 12-game winning streak last year to make the playoffs. They win 11 games, they miss. Think of that for a moment. Like, that's just a ridiculous figure to kind of think about. So I think that's where the common theme is for these teams. Like, you can mention the drafting. I think that's a fair one, where the Blues seem to have done a better job of landing on their picks than what the LA Kings have. The Kings did acquire a star, but a little too late when it comes to Panarin. He's getting older. He's out of his prime. He's still a star, I would say, but he's not the same guy that he was in the past. I think it comes down to that star. If you don't have it, you're always going to be a team that is kind of a fringe playoff contender that gets in and has a tough time once you get there, and typically are going home in the first round. I think that is the most common denominator of these teams, because if you did, like we'll use the Kings, for example. If you had Panarin in his prime, for example, as a superstar, there's less pressure on a Quentin Byfield to develop into becoming that guy. There's less pressure on some of your more, what would you call it, second-tier prospects, like Dvorsky's the 10th overall pick. 10th overall pick typically doesn't become a superstar. But if you don't end up having that guy in the system, or you don't end up having that guy on the team, you always are asking for more out of that guy. So the Cardinals always fell victim to. Harrison Bader would have to hit 5th. Bader was never a 5-hole hitter. Bader became a very good Major League Baseball player. Why was he disappointing here? Because you didn't have that star. You didn't have the stars to hit ahead of him in your lineup. The same can be said in the NHL. If you don't have the star that's there, all these pieces can develop into being complementary pieces. But if you don't have the star, you're asking one of them to become a guy that he just can't become.
Yeah, and I think that's tied into the draft. Like, I just looked at this in the last 9 years. This is what the Kings have done with their draft picks.
Get emotional?
Well, a little bit. They drafted Gabe Velarde 11th overall. I'd say that's a pretty successful draft. Problem is you traded him.
Ouch.
You drafted Rasmus Kupari 20th overall.
Never heard of him.
Not on the team. Traded him. You drafted Alex Turcotte, Alex Turcotte was selected 5th overall. Right now, he's got 14 points and is a -8 in 61 games in his second full season in the NHL. You know who they could have drafted after Turcotte? Mo Seider, Philip Broberg, Matt Boldy. Like 2020, the LA Kings selected Quentin Byfield. That's a really good player at the time, we thought. Tim Stützle was selected right after him, and he is a #1 center for the LA Kings. 2021, the LA Kings selected 8th overall with Brandt Clark. Dylan Guenther right now has almost 100 goals in less than 250 games played in the National Hockey League. And then they traded away their first-round pick in 2023 to chase the playoffs, traded away their first-round pick in this past year's draft, chasing the playoffs. Like, if you want to know the mistake, nail your draft picks and stop trading them unless you're ready to win. Like, I think a lot of people looked at this year and was like, yeah, you may want to try and be aggressive and go get that star.
But is that the lesson when the Blues have done it and they haven't gotten anywhere with it? Now, maybe it's too early to grade it.
It's too early, yeah. I mean, like,
because, we agree they've done well on their first-round picks and they haven't traded them, yet they're actually probably, I don't know if they're in a worse spot.
Yeah, but I think they're in a better spot than the Kings, but they're also 3 years into these guys to where Dvorsky was drafted. Like, I think Snuggerud was the one that was drafted drafted the furthest away. He was 2022, but Dvorsky was 23, and then you've got guys in 24 and last year that aren't here yet. I just listed off the 2017 pick who was traded away, 2018 pick who was traded away, 2019 pick who has not lived up to expectations, who was a 5th overall pick, and the 2020 and 2021 pick who was 8th and 2nd overall, who have not lived up to it. Like, they're a little bit further along. They're doing what the Blues might be getting to where drafted 10th overall, they might be drafting top 5. If you nail a top 5 pick and Detroit's pick becomes a top 10 and nail those, you've already expedited what the LA Kings did. So I don't know. It's a fascinating look into it that you obviously have to kind of measure and assess moving forward. Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's rewind it next here on 101 ESPN. Along with Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Fun show today. BK not with us. He will be back, or hopefully back tomorrow, as long as the little guy is feeling better, from 11 to 2. If you missed any of the show today, you can check it out on our podcast page. The free 101 ESPN app is where you can find it. It's presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. The 101 ESPN app. You can also check out the podcast, which is brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. We talked with Chris Kerber earlier today. A little bit about the Blues and just kind of the stretch that they're putting themselves in and the impact of a game like this one tonight. Also, Jimmy Snuggerud, who was named the NHL Rookie of the Month. So you can check out that interview there. And we also talked a lot about the Cardinals after their victory last night. So, T-Bone, let's start there on our rewind. Cardinals a 3-0 shutout over the Mets last night, to where, look, Pallante was the biggest story on that one. He gives them 5 innings of solid work, doesn't give up a run, puts them in a tough spot in the 6th inning, but they find a way to get through it. That's what Andre Pallante is going to have to show over the next month or so, with a competition of more guys in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I think he's the guy in the rotation under the most pressure for the first month of the season, because you've got guys like Dobbins, who's on a rehab assignment, so in 30 days they have to decide if he's going to be called up or if they're going to burn an option year and send him down. You've got Fitz that's down there in the minor leagues, Bryson Motts along with Quinn Matthews, who started today, guys that are getting closer to the big league level. And Pallante's the one, in my opinion, that's probably trying to pitch to save his job, at least in the early going of the year. And he looked good last night. You know, he was mixing the stuff well, kept the ball on the ground. Right-handers were 0 for 9. He did walk him twice, but struck out 2. 10 whiffs on his stuff. Like, he looked good. He looked like Pallante from a couple years ago, not last year. Last year, Pallante was bad. But 2 years ago, Pallante was pretty good. So I thought it was an encouraging sign from him. And then you add in kind of Ivan Herrera calling the game behind the plate, the 2 pitchers he's worked with this year, and I don't know how correlated it truly is, but the Cardinals are saying, hey, look, he's doing a better job of calling games behind the plate, which is a good sign. It's one of 2 things he really needed to improve upon behind the plate if he's going to remain a catcher for them in the long term, which is his game calling and then throwing out base runners. Nobody's tried to steal on him yet, but at least you're seeing encouraging signs based on what the Cardinals are saying publicly and based on the way the pitchers have pitched with Herrera behind the plate, that he's calling some good games as well. So it's 2 really encouraging signs for the Cardinals in that start last night.
Currently, it is a 0-0 game headed to the top of the 4th inning. Cardinals have picked up 1 hit, which was the Ivan Herrera single. Matthew Liberatore so far, as he had... where's it at? Yeah, here we go. A total of 3 innings of work. He's gotten 0 strikeouts. Has thrown a total of 34 pitches so far into this one. So we'll kind of see what it looks like the rest of the way as the Cardinals wrap up the home portion of the start to their schedule, and then they head out on the road after this one. On the Blues side of things, T-Bone tonight taking on the LA Kings. A tough one that they lost on Monday, but you want to pull yourself back into it, you've got to win in regulation. I think I saw that if they win in regulation tonight, it moves to a 9% chance of them making the playoffs.
All right.
If they lose in regulation, it's like a 1.7 chance. I told you during the break, this is going to be the one that will have fans saying, okay, you're still in this, or okay, it's over.
Yeah, you lose tonight in regulation, honestly, even in overtime, in my opinion, you're probably done.
Yeah.
I know that there's still the chance, like you mentioned, 1% chance. You can definitely put the nail in the coffin that they're done. If they win tonight in regulation, it's still hard to get back into it because that Sharks loss was such a critical one. But you can maybe convince yourself you've almost got to play flawless hockey to this point, right? You got 9 games remaining on the schedule, if I'm not mistaken. You probably need to win, 8 or 9 in regulation, if not all 9, go on a 9-game winning streak to close out the year. Like, they just didn't give themselves enough wiggle room based on their start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, you really do, in all reality, have to win, in my opinion, 8 of the final 9 to give yourself a realistic chance. But that's with the intention of knowing that those other teams are going to continue their struggles. So Bennington gets the start. No other changes for the Blues as they'll take on the Kings tonight. We've got puck drop at 8 o'clock with our First Community Credit Union pregame starting at 7. Again, if you missed any of the show, make sure you check it out on our podcast page afterwards. You can also check out the new episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast. We released one yesterday, and I believe you guys are going to have a new Redbird report tomorrow.
If he's here, yes. If not, then I don't know what we're going to do.
If not, then no Redbird report. It all relies on BK and the little guy's health. We'll talk to you tomorrow from 11 to 2. We'll have Joe Vitale joining us tomorrow, and new Blues prospect Felix Trudeau, who they signed out of college. He is going to join us tomorrow as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I'll talk to you tonight. And then the Fast Lane. They've got you coming up next from 2 to 6 right here on 101 ESPN.